with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The broadcast is also available on YouTube channel as well as on KBC Channel 1 and on Bunge TV. My name is Gladys Mungai. Let's start off by having a look at some of the order of business highlighted for this afternoon. The House will be considering, as well as a few motions will be moved on the table of the House this afternoon. Among them is the County Allocation Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020. The Committee of the Whole will equally be giving or looking into the bill on the County Allocation of Revenue, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020. This is a bill by the Chairperson Budget and Appropriations Committee. The House is lined up to debate a motion on the implementation of the status of the report on petitions of an inquiry into the crisis facing the sugar sector in Kenya. That this House adopts a report of the Committee on the implementation of the status of the report of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture as well as Livestock. This is based on a petition on the inquiry into the crisis facing the sugar industry. The report was laid on the table of the House, the day being Thursday, June 19, 2020. This is in 2019. Also lined up in the order of business this afternoon is the Public Funding Appeals Bill, National Assembly Bill number 66 of 2019 by the Chairperson, Constitution, Implementation and Oversight Committee. Also lined up for the order of business this afternoon is the County Government Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 13 of 2018. The Chairperson, Public Investment Committee, will be moving a motion onto the Special Audit Report on procurement of pre-export verification of conformity to standard services by the Kenya Bureau of Standards. The motion reads that this House adopts the report of the Public Investment Committee on its consideration of the Special Audit Report. This is on the procurement of pre-export verification in conformity to standard services for used motor vehicles, mobile equipment, and used spare parts in Kenya by the Kenya Bureau of Standards. That particular report was laid on the table of the House, the day being 2nd of June 2020. Pursuant to the provisions of number 42A, subsection 5, members of Parliament will be fielding questions for reply before specified departmental committees. The member for Kathiani, Honorable Robert Mbui, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Physical Planning, that is the Cabinet Secretary aware that during the compulsory acquisition of land by the government, this is in 1985, for the expansion of Kathiani Level 4 Hospital, only 5 out of 8 of the affected landowners were compensated. And second, could the Cabinet Secretary consider compensating the remaining 3 affected landowners in that particular area? Those particular questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Lands. Member for Runyenjes, Honorable Eric Muchangi, to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation to provide the status of the construction of Tuchi Dam in Iriari sublocation that borders Runyenjes and Chuka Igamba Ngombe constituencies. Also, the Honourable Member will be seeking to understand what is the total expected cost of the construction of the said dam and how much has been spent up to date and when it's expected to be completed. The Honourable Member will equally be seeking answers on what measures the Ministry has put in place to ensure that the construction of the said dam is fully funded. And that particular question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Nominated Member Honourable Gideon Koter will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Youth and Gender what is the progress of the recent recruitment undertaken by the Public Service Commission that was advertised in June 2020 on various job vacancies. The member will equally be seeking to understand how many people were actively recruited and in particular, how many youths were recruited. Those particular questions by nominated MP Gideon Keter will be replied before the Committee on Labour and Social Welfare. Honourable Member for Westlands, Honourable Timo Nyonyi, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry to provide a list of all private dams in every constituency, indicating whether each dam currently conforms to the structure of safety, as well as to provide a list of all industries in every constituency with a radius of 100 meters of residential areas and waste of disposal mechanisms. Those particular questions will be replied before the Environment and Natural Resources Departmental Committee. On your screens is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honourable Justin Muturi, making his way into the chamber. I'll now hand you over for the live broadcast. Enjoy your viewing. Good afternoon.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who will, in your wisdom and goodness, have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with abundant favor as your servants whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests were committed to our church. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
The Honorable George Theuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, undersigned on behalf of people of Embakasi West constituency, draw the attention of the House to the following. That Article 10(2) of Constitution identifies good governance as part of the pillars constituting the national values and principles of governance. Section 7(6) of Public Service Values and Principles Act 2015 requires every public institution to facilitate the introduction of modern and innovative procedures, technologies, and systems for the delivery of its services, as well as simplify its procedures and ease formalities related to access and delivery of its services. A toll-free number is a dedicated phone line that allows callers to reach an institution without incurring charges, can usually be accessed from any network, and are typically short codes that are easy to remember. Whereas a few government departments run emergency toll-free numbers, the majority of government institutions still rely on normal mobile telephone numbers as the point of contact with the public in case of emergency or for responding to general citizen inquiries. In ongoing COVID-19 pandemic periods, access to valuable information from government institutions have provided difficult and expensive on account of calling costs incurred by tax-paying citizens. Millions of Kenyans are unable to access information from various departments of the government, primarily because the typical contacts provided by the government offices are mobile numbers or landlines for both regular and emergency inquiries. Efforts to address this matter with relevant authorities have not borne much fruit, and that the matter in respect of which this petition is made is not pending before any court of law or constitutional body. Therefore, your humble petitioner pray that the National Assembly, through the Department Committee of Administration and National Security, 1, inquires into the matter with a view to securing the installation of toll-free numbers in all vital and non-vital government departments that are manned by professional customer service agents around the clock. 2, secures the provision of civil education to sensitize the public on how to use toll-free numbers in order to guarantee faster service delivery to the public, improve feedback mechanism for the government through this system, and facilitate communication during emergency situations, and secures the drafting and publication of a policy guiding and directing the use of essential toll-free numbers and are used by the various offices and departments of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You directed it to, is it Administration of National Security? Do I see the Honorable Koinange in the chamber? Honorable Koinange, does he has a vice chair? Who? The Honorable Fatuma Gedi. Looks like the two of them have a different time when the House sits. A member, Honorable Kabinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a member of that committee, and I want to thank the honorable member for raising up this very important issue, Mr. Speaker. It is true that out there, most of the members of public do not know where to turn to in case of emergencies, and it's only at that time that they realize that they needed to have some of these numbers somewhere within their reach. So we will take it very seriously, Mr. Speaker, and attend to the prayers of the Embakasi people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
How soon do you think you can be?
Mr. Speaker, I would want to say within 2 weeks, I'm sure we will have sat and considered the petition.
If you could extend it to the rest of the country, perhaps.
Yeah, there actually is much more worse at county level, Mr. Speaker. It just appeared to me that recently we had fire in my town, Gurbani, and it took so long to get to the contacts of the fire brigade people for them to come there. So it's a very serious issue. 1 month. I'm told to give it 1 month, Mr. Speaker, so that we give it the seriousness that it deserves. So let's give it 1 month. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Deuri, is that okay? Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader majority. Sorry, honour members. Looks like there are some members who wanted to make 1 or 2 comments on that petition. Yeah, because this time I think if there are members who I could allow you to make 1 or 2 comments. Now the member for Kimilili, is it about this? Honorable Barasa, is it about this? Very well. How is it that your country is not... Yeah, it is. It is. I can see it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted to thank Honorable Kabinga. While the standing orders allows him, gives him a latitude of about 60 days or more or so, but he undertakes to bring this matter within, no, the standing orders allows him to do it within 3 months. But if he has agreed to provide this within a month, then this is the spirit which we should encourage, Honorable Speaker, because some of these petitions that are sought are not only going to provide some information and improve that particular area that they are sought, Honorable Speaker, but they can be replicated elsewhere across the country, Honorable Speaker. So this is very good, Honorable Kabinga, and God bless you.
Mr.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to also put in a word. It's been a while since I spoke here. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important petition, and I'm indeed happy that it's going before the committee chaired by the Honorable Paul Koinange, which of course has Honorable Kabinga and others. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter that requires all the attention that it deserves from the committee and of course from the House. Because, the Speaker, in the times in which we live, technology has really advanced, and it is inconceivable that citizens have had to physically look for public officers, okay, in times of crisis, times of emergency, while we could easily have in place a mechanism such as a toll, okay, a toll number that can make it possible for citizens to access government officers in terms of emergency, and even during ordinary times. So I think this is a very timely petition, and I'm sure the committee chaired by Honorable Kanange will deal with it appropriately. It has really been very effective, that committee, I must say, in this parliament, yeah, compared to the previous one. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Nominee 001.
Honorable Speaker, let me first of all thank Honorable Theuri for bringing such a very important matter, and also thank the committee, which is led by Honorable Koinange and represented ably by my desk mate, Honorable Kabinga, that they will address this issue very fast and timely, not within 90 days, but within 30 days. Honorable Speaker, they should be able to look into the whole country, because the problem that affect the people that are represented by Honorable Theuri are the same issues that are being seen in our places of representation, Narok and other places. So, Honorable Speaker, I thank the committee, and let be the spirit of all the chairpersons of every committee, including Honorable Olekenda. Let us be timely and effectively in responding to such matters. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Mavoko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, this petition is timely, Mr. Speaker. When you look at the emergency numbers in this country, namely police, EMS, fire, and the Coast Guard, Mr. Speaker, they are all dead. Nowadays, Mr. Speaker, it is very difficult to have a response in time. And, you know, during this time of COVID, Mr. Speaker, most people are suffering in their houses. And indeed, the petition is timely that the committee charged with this of Interior and Security, Mr. Speaker, it will be helpful to all Kenyans who are in distress. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the Honorable Theuri and, Mr. Speaker, to the committee in responding this in a month, because, Mr. Speaker, if it's replicated in the whole country, particularly the counties, it will be of great help. And it's time we revived the emergency numbers of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank Honorable Theuri for this timely petition. Honorable Speaker, I think it will also be important that when the Committee on Internal Security will be looking into this, they'll be able to invite the Communications Authority of Kenya, because there are areas within this country that do not have networks. Even if you have toll-free station, but you are not able to access network, then I think it will be other Kenyans will be not get the service they need. So I think the Communication Authority of Kenya should make sure that every part of this country has a network so that they are able to, in case of any emergency, and even the issue of those toll stations are being introduced, they are able to communicate their issues without any problem. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Bondo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in this country, the government has tried very well in terms of how to get information in terms of what it does. But it has done completely zero in terms of way of reporting and getting feedback. There's a big problem in terms of how to do a report and how to give a feedback in terms of either service in one way or the other. But there are these various mechanisms in terms of how you can get information. I think that's commendable. But the reverse of it is information for what if you can't get feedback? Information for what if reports cannot get to the government in a proper manner that can help wananchi? So I think, Mr. Speaker, this is a critical petition, and it really needs to be looked at very seriously. Like has been mentioned, what exists or what we know exists doesn't work. So what do we need to do so that we bring in a system that can work and can help the country? Mr. Speaker, I can bring in a personal experience that some of our guys were stuck in the lake sometimes 2 years ago. It took me 2 days to get to the person who is responsible for air wing, police air wing. You call 99, you call that number, you call headquarters, you are taken round and round until you are taken back again to Eldoret. That when you are talking about anything in Nyanza or wherever, you must talk to somebody in Eldoret to get an air wing. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is critical.
Member for Kangudo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me opportunity to deliberate on this petition. Honorable Speaker, it is true the communication is very important and the key to develop a nation like Kenya. Today, our communication is very poor. We normally have only 99 and 991. Actually, like the police department in this country, his own department has shown a proper communication. Communication is the key to proper governance, and is the high time the Department for ICT need to move faster and bring a toll-free number to every government department, even in this parliament. If you see our postal, or what we used to call post office, Kenya, is doing very poor in terms of logistics because of failed communication. They have failed to give them modern communication technology, and they could even have supplied all the department of the government with all these numbers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge we move faster with the Department of ICT to give a toll-free number for everywhere, every corner of this country. Thank you.
Baringo Central, member for Baringo Central.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want also to add one or 2 points on that. I want to say that these communication lines are very critical. I was trying sometimes back in Baringo to bring in those numbers of even emergency numbers of fire and police and other areas, but there is a big problem because there is also awareness. Our people don't know the importance of those numbers. So I think the committee, when they are coming up with a report, they should make sure that they have, we bring up a report where public participation is also included, so that our people are aware of these numbers when they are having emergencies. So in that note, I support, even in other countries, they have even toll numbers on highways. So even us, we should come up with, if an accident happens on a road, there should be a number where somebody can call and he is rescued very fast so that our people don't die just like that. So I support the petition from Honorable Member, and we need to come up with a very systematic way of maybe engaging the government so that they can bring those numbers into use. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Finally, member for Marakwet West and chairman of ICT Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to comment on the petition by Honorable Deuri. Deuri is a member of the ICT Committee, and I believe when we call Communication Authority of Kenya to come, we should be able to interrogate this. And what members are saying, Honorable Speaker, is true, because in this day and age, we should be having free hotlines, free toll numbers across the country to help, especially what Honorable Kendi has just said, along the road, so that if there is an accident or an emergency, people should just call and we rescue lives. Because there are people who die maybe because of internal bleeding, because they are not rescued in good time. Honorable Speaker, I also wanted to give that 2 weeks ago we had a meeting with Communication Authority of Kenya, and we know across the country there are areas that voice network is still very low, and a tender has already been put out to improve on the network using the Universal Service funds. And even these toll-free numbers, we should be using those same funds to give out free toll numbers. Like Ministry of Health, with the COVID pandemic, they were given 719 number for free. So even the other agencies, including the police service, I believe when we deal with this petition, we will recommend and tell them they need to assist the country so that it will be easy for us to communicate across. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and we will, in the next 2 weeks, basically, we should come out with the report.
Very well. Let's move to the next order. Leader Majority.
Order number 5, papers.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on table of the House today, Tuesday, October the 6th, 2020. Number 1, the advisory of the Chief Justice to the President in the matter of the petitions for the dissolution of Parliament pursuant to Article 261(7) of the Constitution and 6 related annexures as listed below. Number 1, CJ Petition number 1 of 2018 by Honorable Stephen Owoko and John Wangai. B, CJ Petition number 2 of 2019 by Margaret Toili. C, CJ Petition number 2 of 2019 by Frederick Geshanga Bugwa. D, CJ Petition number 3 of 2019 by Aoko Bernard. E, CJ Petition number 4 of 2019 by Honorable David Sudi. And F, CJ Petition number 1 of 2020 by the Law Society of Kenya. Honorable members, the report is not for any action by the House, but the Honorable Speaker has permitted that the reports be laid so as to form part of the journals of the House. So that's it rests there. Number 2, the sessional paper on the Kenya Micro and Small Enterprises Policy for the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development. Number 3, the list of nominees to 3 National Government Constituencies Development Fund committees from the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board for the following constituencies: Kuria East, Shinyalu, and Mgwen. Number 4, the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June and the certificates therein. Number 1, the National Assembly. B, Enable Youth Kenya Program, that's the ADF loan number 21001500388895 from the State Department for Crop Development. And C, the Small Scale Irrigation and Value Addition Project, that's ADF loan number 2000130014530, and grant number 5570155000751 from the State Department for Crops Development. And D, the Kenya Marines, Fisheries and Socio-Economic Development Project, IDA credit number V 1310-KE from the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. C, D, E, the Agricultural Sector Development Support Program 2, which is the CEDA grant number 5110107 09 from the Minister of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. F, the National Agriculture and Rural Inclusive Growth Project, IDA credit number 5900-KE from the Minister of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. And G, the National Police Service Commission. The number 5 on the list is performance audit report on land conservation and restoration of quarries in Kenya from the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA. And lastly, the performance audit report on fire safety preparedness in secondary schools from the Office of the Auditor General. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairman, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, October the 6th, 2020. That is a report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2020. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Olekenta.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on Implementation on its consideration of the public petition to reconsider the resolution of the House on the report on the crisis facing the sugar industry in Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Some of you know members, you've been writing, requesting that your questions be defined, but then suddenly as I walk in, I find you comfortably seated here. So I don't know. I have a report from the Honorable Robert Mbui, member for Kadiani, who wrote to me requesting that his question be deferred. I believe he's not in the House, so question deferred. Next question is by the member for Runyenjes, Honorable Mushangi. When you have questions, just press the intervention button.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to ask question number 223/20 to the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of the construction of Thoshi Dam in Eriari sublocation along the border of Runyenjes and Chuka Igambangombe constituencies? 2, what is the total expected cost of the construction of the said dam? How much has been spent to date, and when is it expected to be completed? 3, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the construction of the said dam is fully funded? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next question by nominated member Gideon Keter. You don't have an account? No, you can't just walk there. Why are you walking there? Why you coming to the house?
Yes.
And you came just on your 2 feet, nothing else. You forgot some of the gadgets. Honorable Ketel, next time you will not be allowed, but proceed to ask your question.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, for that. I would like to ask the question to the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Youth and Gender, that what is the progress of the recent recruitment undertaken by Public Service Commission that was advertised in June 2020 on various job vacancies, and how many people were actively recruited, and in particular, how many youth were recruited? And third is, what measures the Public Service Commission is taking to ensure hiring of qualified young people as provided for in Article 55 of the Constitution? And also, why is the delay too long?
That's not part of the question.
Okay.
But more important,
thank you.
Maybe Honorable Ketel, you say how many people are actively recruited? That's what you have asked. What do you mean, actively? Did you mean actively recruited or?
Maybe it is some error in actually.
Actually recruited.
Actually recruited.
Yeah, because it looks fake.
Not actively.
Yes. Very well. The question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. I received a request for deferment of this question, but I can see the member is in the House. Member for Westlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had requested to refer because I was in Mombasa, but I managed to reach on time. My question to the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry. Question 1, Mr. Speaker. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all private dams in every constituency, indicating whether each of the dams currently conforms to the structural safety, the effect of each dam on surrounding environment, and the mitigation mechanisms put in place by the respective dam proprietors, if any? Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all industries in every constituency within a radius of 100 meters of residential areas, and the waste disposal mechanism and plans in place, if any? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the policy measures in place to ensure the existence of buffer zones between residential areas and approved industrial zones, and regular inspections are undertaken to ensure compliance? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
To be replied before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources as well. Next question by the member for Kimilili, Honorable Barasa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question number 244 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Could the CS consider constructing a bridge to connect Kimilili and the rural areas of Kimilili constituency, noting that the recent collapse of a key connection bridge in June 2020, which has led to disruption of communication and transport in the two areas? Question number 2, what measures has the Ministry put in place to ensure that the bridge that will be constructed will be to the said standards, considering that the previous bridge was reported to have collapsed due to lack of adherence to the said standards at the time of construction? I thank you.
Question to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by the member for Sabatia, Honorable Agoi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to ask question number 250 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and the Coordination of National Government. 1, what is the status of compensation for the victims of the terrorist attack at Dusit D2 Hotel on 15th of January 2019, Westgate on 21st September 2013, and the United States Embassy bombing of 7th August 1998. 2, Honorable Speaker, what measures is the government putting in place to ensure that the said victims are fully compensated in time? And 3, could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether there are plans so far to curb these terror attacks and consequently assure Kenyans of absolute security against such attacks, and what have been put in place by the government to assist persons affected by these attacks? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Next question by the member for Webuye West, Honorable Wanyama Sitati. Can you just put your intervention button?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the question to Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a progress report on a call for tenders for the design and construction of Kakamega Bungoma bulk water supply and sanitation project under Lake Victoria North Water Works Development Agency, considering that a list of farms who had expressed interest on the project was published in March 2020. Number 2, when will the construction of the said project commence, indicating stages and timelines of implementation to the various phases of construction? And lastly, what measures will the ministry put in place to ensure that the said project is constructed to the required standards and completed within stipulated time as to expeditiously assist thousands of households in the counties of Bungoma and Kakamega to access clean water? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next question is by the nominated member, Godfrey Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 261 of 2020. The question directed to Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances under which 10,000 acres of nucleus land are LR number 7545/3 leased to Miwani Sugar Company in Kisumu County was allegedly sold to Crossley Holdings Limited in December 2007. 2, could the Cabinet Secretary state in details whether the alleged sale of the parcel of land was carried out in accordance with the law? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary consider acquiring back the said land for farmers' utilization and development, noting the anticipated special economic zones in the county? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied before the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. Next question by the Honorable Anthony Tomoluch, member for Madare. I think he requested for deferment. Yes, I saw the letter. Question is, request is acceded to. The member for Mwea, next question, Washira Kabinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask question number 263 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain and provide details on the recent invasion of farms in Mwea irrigation scheme by a strange variety of snails? Has the ministry undertaken, that is number 2, has the ministry undertaken to assess the extent of damage caused by the snails on crops and human beings in terms of loss of crops and produce, as well as health risks to the residents? Number 3, what steps has the ministry taken to eradicate or control the invasion of the strange variety of snails? And number 4, could the Cabinet Secretary consider compensating the affected farmers? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied before the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. Last question by the member for Sigowet Soin, Honorable Kipsengeret Koros.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 264 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Question 1. What is the progress of construction of the Changware Cabinet Road in Sigawet Soin constituency and the interconnection of the same road with Cap Tebeswet Chemnyoga Road in Belkut constituency? Secondly, Mr. Speaker, is why was a section of the road left untarmacked? Third, what measures has the Cabinet Secretary put in place to ensure that the untarmacked section is completed? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Yes, what's your point of honor, Honorable Pukose?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on 22nd September 2020, I asked question number 024 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government on status of investigations into the killing of the late Tom Wekesa Sirengo in Molem. And this was questioned by private notice. And I was told that this was going to be responded within a week. Up to date, Honorable Speaker, this is week 3, and it has not been responded. This is causing stress to the families, and apparently nothing is happening on the ground. So I needed your urgent intervention on this matter, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
As you can see, 42 minutes since the House reconvened, the chair of the committee, Honorable Poko Inange, he has a deputy, Fatuma, what is her name? Fatuma Gedi. I think, I don't know, is the committee sitting somewhere? Is it? Honorable Kabinga, is that committee the cap?
Mr. Speaker, the committee is not sitting, but we have a team that has been very actively involved in the visiting of various police stations to ensure that we improve services in that direction. And Mr. Speaker, on this particular one, I would like to say we will be checking on that particular question. But I also want to note, or to let the House know, that we have members who give us questions and then at the response day, they don't turn up, Mr. Speaker. And standing orders provide that if a member doesn't turn up, the question is dropped. Last week, we had so many so many questions that fell under that category. Members brought in questions, the CAS, Ministry of Interior turned up, but members were not there. And therefore, we had to drop those questions, Mr. Speaker. No, I want to also take note.
Tell your clerk to provide a report.
Yes.
So that the report is also read out here. So that it is also another way of either getting everybody to pull up their socks inter alia, if not just shaming them.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ask a question and they don't appear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we have a list, and therefore we'll ask our clerk to provide a report on that.
It should, but this one is not one of them. The one by Pukose is not one of them.
Mr. Speaker, I've just said that we'll be checking on the status of his particular question.
No, there's no point of it. The leader majority always on Thursdays always reads out the names of the cabinet secretaries who will be appearing before various committees the week that follows.
Yes.
So we need to see whether this was one of them, but I suspect it was not. So let it be followed up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Also this Thursday, Honorable Kabinga, since you are the one who is present, and I'm aware about the trip, the visits by the members of your committee. Bring the list to the leader majority so that it is read out, and those members who ask those questions, their names are also read out, and they are told they did not appear, and therefore the questions were dropped, so that their constituents will know that they chose to do other things as opposed to represent them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well guided.
I think there's no debate on this. There's a question by the Honorable Pukosa, because I know I remember hearing him ask the question by private notice, and questions by private notice should always be answered within, given the circumstances of this pandemic period, at least within a week. At least within a week, the question should be responded to. So in this case, Honorable Wachira Kabinga, just liaise with the leader majority so that you can be provided with an answer, and then we can get the indication on Thursday. Next segment is about the responses. There are two responses from the member for Peter Kihara Kariuki and sort of statement, and the Honorable, the Honorable Peter Kihara Kariuki is the one giving the response. Very well, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two responses. One, to the statement by the Hon Danson Mwashako, MP Wundanyi constituency on Mzima Springs, Mzima Water Pipeline Water Project. The member for Wundanyi, Hon Speaker, Hon Danson Mwashako, MP sought for a statement on Mzima 2 Pipeline Water Project pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C. He respectively raised the following concerns in his statement. He requested raised the following concerns in his statement. He requested for 1, information regarding the financing preparations for the preparations the government has made so far to fund Mzima 2 water project. What is the actual amount of funds that will be required to actualize the project? When will the construction of the project commence, and when is it expected to be completed? 2, the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation to confirm whether the financing agreement has now been signed, and why has it taken inordinate time to conclude negotiations? 3, the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation to confirm whether the first beneficiary of the project shall be the people of Taita Taveta, and that the water will reach Wundanyi town and Kashushe locations. 4, the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation to provide the project designs showing the scope of the project and whether the Taita residents will be given priority. Hon Speaker, the committee engaged the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation on the above concerns raised by Hon Mwashako, and I therefore wish to respond to the issues as follows. On 1 above, Mzima 2 Pipeline is a Vision 2030 flagship project projected to serve approximately 1.5 million people in the counties of Makueni, Taita Taveta, Kwale, Kilifi, and Mombasa. Hon Speaker, the project will be implemented through the procurement of EPC plus financing contract model. The project will be completed within a period of 3 years plus 1 year defects liability period. The procurement was done and the project awarded to AVIC International Holding Corporation on 17th July 2017. The signing of the commercial contract agreement was executed after the due diligence exercise, and the contractor was given the green light to source for the funds from China Exim Bank as a financier of the project. China Exim Bank and the Office of the Attorney General gave a no objection to the loan agreement. However, due to unavoidable circumstances, it took long for the loan agreement to be executed, leading to expiry of the commercial contract in July 2020. Coast Waterworks Development Agency requested for an extension, which was granted for a period of 1 year to July 2021. Hon Speaker, the government is seeking USD 335.34 million, that is Kenya shillings, approximately 36.3 billion, based on CBK exchange rate of 108.2129. which was quoted by the contractor to actualize the project. In line with the financing agreement, China Exim Bank will finance 85%, amounting to Kenya shillings 29.030,363,937, while the Kenya government will finance 15% of the project, amounting to 7,257,590,984.25, comprising of the project safeguards and the cost of environmental social impact assessment and the resettlement action plan. On 2, Mr. Speaker, on the second question by the Honourable Member, Hon Speaker, the commercial contract has been extended to July 2021. The new schedule and timelines towards signing the financing agreement is under negotiations between the National Treasury and the China Exim Bank. Once the negotiations on the financing agreement are concluded and cleared by the Attorney General, the financing agreement will be signed to pave way for the commencement of the detailed designs and construction works for the project. Honourable Speaker, on question 3, water will be supplied to communities along the pipeline corridor in order to enhance access to water and improve the well-being of the people, while at the same time ensuring integrity of the pipeline. Wundanyi and Kishushe locations are at a very high elevation compared to the pipeline, approximately 1,400 meters higher. Supplying water to these areas from the pipeline will not be feasible because the cost of doing so would be unsustainable due to the high operational costs that will be required. In this regard, the solution to expanding water supply to Wundanyi town would best be served from River Wundanyi, which passes next to the town. On question 4, Honourable Speaker, the preliminary designs were done by Sincat and Atkins in 1996 and have mostly been overtaken by time. The Cabinet Secretary suggested that the Hon member for Wundanyi could wait for the design review report that is expected to be one of the deliverables of the contractor. The review of the design will be done within full participation of the county, with full participation of the counties of Makueni, Taita Taveta, Kwale, Kilifi, and Mombasa, and the shareholders to ensure concerns of each county are captured in the final designs of the project. Honourable Speaker, I submit and thank you. Signed by Honourable Kareke Mbuki, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Honourable Speaker, yes, we also have a second response. I don't know whether I could go ahead.
The one by
Honourable Bernard Shinyali.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Shinyali, MP, requested a statement regarding Lihanda Corridor gold exploration. Hon Speaker, the member for Ikolomani, the Hon Bernard Shinyali, MP, sought for the statement on Lihanda Corridor gold exploration pursuant to Standing Orders 44-2C. He specifically raised the following concerns in his statement. 1. The estimated value and quantity of gold deposits in the Lihanda Gold Corridor that Acacia Exploration Kenya Limited identified, and the mining methods that the company intended to deploy in mining gold in this particular region in light of sustainability of the environment. 2. The ownership of Acacia Exploration Kenya Limited that has been awarded the rights to prospect gold in Lihanda Gold Corridor and whether it had local shareholding. 3. The formula and structure that the ministry intended to use in ensuring that there is equitable sharing of revenue and royalties between the national government and the county government within Lihanda Gold Corridor once economic exploration of gold commences. 4. The services and infrastructure developments that the ministry and Acacia Exploration Kenya intended to roll out within Lihanda Gold Corridor to benefit the locals. 5. The compensation plan for the locals who had been affected by exploration activities and those who may be affected at the commencement of commercial mining and the timeline for compensating the affected locals. Honorable Speaker, this committee engaged the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining for responses on the above concerns raised by Hon Shinyali. I therefore wish to respond to the above issues as follows. Since pre-colonial times, parts of the Western Belt, especially sections of the present Kakamega County, have been known to be rich in mineral deposits, especially gold. Indeed, the name Ikolomani is the corrupted version of gold mine, where locals have for long been earning a living through artisanal gold mining. In the recent past, Acacia Exploration Kenya Limited, an international mining company, has been prospecting for large-scale and economically viable deposits of gold in Lihanda Gold Corridor, comprising of parts of Kakamega, Siaya, and Kisumu counties. Honorable Speaker, on the estimated value of and quantity of gold deposits in Lihanda Gold Corridor, one above, the ministry responded that the gold deposits in Lihanda Corridor has been discovered and contains an estimated resource of 1,182,000 ounces of gold, grading at 12.6 grams per ton. The resource is classified as inferred. That is the lowest level of confidence within the regulatory body called Standards of Disclosure for Mineral Projects that regulates resource deposits classification. The realizable value for gold of the gold has not yet been determined, i.e., the likely value of the extracted gold less the cost of extracting it. Significantly, more exploration work is required to determine if the gold deposit is economically viable, i.e., if it would make a profit if extracted. If it happens that the gold in the ground will not be profitable, will not make a profit, it will not be mined, and therefore the value of the gold while still on the ground is meaningless. If the discovered resource is proved to be economically viable and mined, it would be mined using underground mining methods, given that the ore bodies characteristics delineated so far. If other gold discoveries were proved viable in future, the mining methods would depend on the physical parameters of the deposits discovered. Honorable Speaker, on the ownership of Acacia Exploration Kenya Limited that have been awarded the rights to prospect gold in the Lihanda Gold Corridor, and whether it has any local shareholding, the ministry stated that Acacia Exploration Kenya Limited is wholly owned by Shanta Gold, a London Stock Exchange listed company. The company has no local shareholding. Honorable Speaker, on the formula and structure the ministry intends to use in ensuring that there is equitable shareholding of revenue and royalties between the national government and the county governments and the local communities within Lihanda Gold Corridor once economic exploration of gold commences. The ministry indicated that in ensuring that there is equitable sharing of royalties, Section 183(5) of the Mining Act, number 12 of 2016, provides that royalties are shared proportionately at 70% to the national government, 20% to the county government, and 10% to the communities where the mining operations occur. Currently, all revenues are remitted to the consolidated fund. However, into other operations, the royalty sharing formula, and in accordance with the Constitution, the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, in conjunction with other state agencies, including the National Treasury, has drafted a mineral royalty fund regulations under the Public Finance Management Act for purposes of disbursement of the 20% and the 10% royalty shares to the counties and the communities affected by mining operations, as well as providing guidelines on the use of the shared royalties. Further, to ensure more benefits to the communities from the mining operations, the Mining Act provides the following: that all large-scale operators, holders of mining licenses, that is, sign a community development agreement with communities within the mining operations. As per the Mining Community Development Agreement Regulations 2017, the operator is obliged to spend not less than 1% of the gross revenue on community projects identified by the Community Development Agreement Committee. B, requirement compelling operators to produce local goods and services as per mining procurement of local goods and services regulations. The companies are required to provide plans and budget at the time of application and licensing for scrutiny, which plans are monitored for compliance during the term of operation. C, preferential employment and training of locals and Kenyans. Large-scale mining operators are required to present for approval a program for employment and training of Kenyans. Any specialized expatriate personnel is supposed to train Kenyans to ensure technology transfer within given timelines pegged on work permit issuance and or renewal. Further, approval has to be sought for any importation of goods and sourcing of services from abroad to ensure that only specialized goods and services that are not available locally are sourced from outside the country. Honorable Speaker, the ministry calls on the local leadership and the country and the county government to team up with it in facilitating development of local entrepreneurship, to prepare and enable the locals to participate in supply of goods and services. On the services and infrastructure development that the ministry and Acacia Exploration Kenya Limited intend to roll out within Lihanda Gold Corridor, to benefit on that question, Mr. Speaker, Acacia is still at the exploration stage and is therefore not in a position yet to start planning for services and infrastructure development until it is proven that the gold deposit is profitable to mine. Mining companies develop own infrastructure such as roads and water supply to serve the mining operations. If there is need to share the said infrastructure with communities, negotiations can be initiated as appropriate. If further the government wishes the company to develop services and infrastructure on its behalf, then the two parties will enter into negotiations on how to go about such projects. However, the Mining Act provides the community development agreements where Act provides that community development agreements where mining affected communities into agreements with mining companies where the company disburses at least 1% of its gross mineral sales revenue to the community for social projects. On whether there is a compensation plan for the locals who have been affected, Honorable Speaker, yes, there is compensation plan for the locals affected by the exploration activities. The company has been undertaking drilling operations in its effort to delineate gold mineralization in terms of depth and extent. Whether the company identifies any area for drilling, it involves the Ministry of Agriculture experts to quantify the value of any crop, trees that may be damaged in the course of exploration or drilling for adequate compensation of affected farmers and locals. Before the commencement of any mining, the locals who will be affected will have their land and development therein valued for compensation. The compensation process will be guided by the Kenya Constitution, which calls for prompt and fair compensation. The Mining Act 2016, the Land Act, and the World Bank guidelines on compensation and resettlement. Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit. Signed by Honorable Kareke Mbuki, Chairperson, Departmental Committee of Environment and Natural Resources. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That's been more than a mouthful. But just to remind members, and perhaps the staff who may be crafting some of those, you do not ask questions or seek statements on matters of law. As a lawmaker, you are expected to know it. Now you're there because you have gone into what the Mining Act provides. It was done by this House. So when a member is being told the Mining Act says this, the regulations say this, the Land Act says this, now we are getting into so surely even the staff who are crafting, who are helping members to to put requests for statements and questions, you must avoid questions or requests that are asking to result in somebody being lectured on what the law provides, because as a lawmaker, that is a standard the world over. You are expected to know the law, so that you cannot. If you don't know it, please just begin looking at it now. Can I get the Honorable Dan Mwashako with regard to the statement read on your, in response to you?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First and foremost, I want to thank the chair of the committee and the ministry for providing what I call a sufficient answer. However, Mr. Speaker, I just want to mention two things quickly. Number one, I think the delays that the time it takes for the ministry, particularly the Ministry of Water, to process requests or contracts that involve big contracts like Mzima 2 leaves a lot to be desired. Honorable Speaker, this project has been in the shelves of the ministry for the last 6-7 years. And now we are told that time elapsed and they have to extend the time so that the financial agreement still is done within the period. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I'm also glad that they mentioned that there will be the review of the designs. The truth be told that Undanyi constituency, Honorable Speaker, the 50% of my constituency truly is on a hill. And but the other 50% is on lowland. Kishushe location, Honorable Speaker, is on the same elevation with Mzima, the source of Mzima Springs. And therefore, I don't understand why the ministry is indicating that the water will not serve Kishushe and areas of Paranga and Mulilo. But however, we'll pursue that with my colleagues from the county, Mheshimiwa Mlola, involved, to make sure that the designs capture all the areas that are within the lowlands. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, they have mentioned a river called River Undanyi as a source of water now for the highlands. Honorable Speaker, I would appeal to the committee to push the ministry to give an annexure into the contract, so that as we provide water to the lowlands, they should also be saying a certain percentage of that contract will also provide water for the highlands, for the people who live in the highlands. Particularly for that river Undanyi they have mentioned, the water is not sufficient, number one. Number two, it's not a very clean source of water. And therefore, ministers need to say, if 36 billion is being used for the entire project, we need to be given, like, even if it's 1 billion, to now process, to give water to the people who live in the highlands. With that, Mheshimiwa Speaker, I submit and thank you for this opportunity.
Honorable Shinali. Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just wish to make a comment on that response by the committee on the Liranda Gold Basin. As a member of that county, Honorable Speaker, Ikolomani is my neighbor, and the undertakings there are good. I want to thank the committee for the substantive response they've given to us. But, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge the committee to do maybe one or two things on behalf of our this belt. That, Honorable Speaker, they push for the conclusion of the regulations so that our people can be paid, because right now the ministry is saying it's not able to pay because there is no formula on how to pay the locals in terms of the 5%, Honorable Speaker, which is in law. And as we all know, the PFM Act says you cannot send money where you have not put the law. So I wish the committee to push for us so that the regulations come. Honorable Speaker, I wish also to bring to the attention of the committee what we have seen going on with Acacia, Honorable Speaker, that they cannot test the gold from Kenya. They cannot trust the Kenyan laboratories, Honorable Speaker, in terms of ascertaining the fineness of the gold, Honorable Speaker. They take the gold across to Tanzania, then they bring it back in terms of testing, Honorable Speaker. I wish to ask the committee, Honorable Speaker, that let them look into that aspect. Could it be just to hoodwink the locals in terms of taking gold out of the country, or what could it be, Honorable Speaker, so that we get value for our gold? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Pandey.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much once again. On the issue of the mineral exploration, particularly gold, in that belt covers my constituency. Indeed, as you speak, a lot of mining activities going on in my constituency by artisans. Mr. Speaker, I've heard the committee say that Acacia Kenya company is owned by some British company fully, 100%. And that British company has got no Kenyan shareholding whatsoever. What I need to get clearly is, what about the Acacia? Okay? Who are the promoters of Acacia? Because, Mr. Speaker, we are witnessing a situation where specific companies are monopolizing the mineral exploration business in this country. And unless it is checked, we may actually end up not reaping the benefits that we need to reap if there is competition, Mr. Speaker. As you know, the area of mineral mining in this country is still not well, it's not really well exploited. And it requires that we be on the lookout to ensure that no monkey business continues to happen. But finally, now that we are talking about exploration license, exploration contracts, what therefore is in the pipeline in terms of real mining, so that we, as soon as we do exploration, those areas which have been explored, okay, can get into the real business of mining so that the country can reap the benefits. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Bondo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes not very difficult, not very easy to understand how the whole arrangement of gold and mining is. Because as we talk about this here, Bondo is one of those areas that are apparently in that corridor. The corridor that spreads from Migori. I don't know how it passes through Bondo. It goes to Sayame partly and finally to Ikolomani. It's basically one belt. and besides that, Mr. Speaker, what is being talked of exploration here is what amazes me. Because these are known areas that have been producing gold in one way or the other. There are people, whether they are artisanal, whether they are peasant miners, or whatever they are, they've been getting gold from these things. And the communities are really not benefiting. But there are people, there are cartels, there are individuals that are getting gold from these areas. So when we are talking about a company being licensed now to do exploration, I think there's quite a bit of contradiction. So I want to believe that this thing needs to be revisited in one way or the other. So that what we are calling exploration needs to be interpolated in a manner that it gets to understand what's going on now, whether what we are getting, whether what the little golds that we are producing are not the kind of gold that they are going to be looking for in the name of exploration, Mr. Speaker. I think there's much more into this. Thank you.
Alabaduele.
Speaker, that was a very good statement. But again, the bottom line is, for over a decade, we are talking about exploration. Even in the north, people get license. People in Nairobi or in government get their kickback. But after 5-6 years, you hear the companies have left. I mean, look at the story of Talo. I mean, we were given a very nice story about Talo. And today we are being told Talo is getting out. And you'll see so many exploration points in the north. Coming back to the gold mine, you know, I like the way the member for Bondo has given the geological survey. It's like he has followed the gold. But again, the people who live, even in Taveta, the people who live in those areas are among the poorest in our country. So I think a time should come when we should now get also value, and this House must decide even to relook at the Mining Act. I totally agree with the Speaker that in the 11th and even the 12th Parliament, we have passed a number of very progressive laws. Now it is the opportunity for members now to feel, and even the government to feel, how are these laws applicable? Are they working subsections? So I think instead of even the statements, you know, because now member for Madhya is not the minister. You know, he's only brought the message. But I think we should bring amendment to those acts and goes through the committee. The committee does public participation. They go to these areas. And then finally, we get value for our resources, value that our people can be proud of, Mr. Speaker.
Perhaps we need to find out whether we have the competencies to determine, because the part of the answer was that you're not too sure whether what is being found there is maybe worthless. But how is it that the people there are able to pick certain things which are still of value? It may speak to the competence of our institutions, because then we could be losing that which belongs to the people of Kenya. Those people of Ikolomani are entitled to reap what is available there under the sharing, the formula which was put in the Act. So this could speak to the competencies of our institutions, because I think, is it the Honorable Ochanda who said, is it or Wandai who said that they take it to Tanzania and then bring it, come and tell you, oh, we discovered it was useless. It's the same thing. And I think this is important, honorable members, because we have also seen those others who are somewhere in Kwale, ferry sands put in ships, then they take it away. They tell you, oh, sorry, what we carried, there was nothing worth paying you anything for. I mean, surely that speaks to the competence of our ministries and people. How, when you allow people to just come and carry shiploads of, they tell you it is salt. Some of it call it rare earth. Rare earth. Now, maybe our people don't understand which one is the common and the rare one. So they pick everything, both the common and the rare one, and then they tell you, oh, it was worth zero. And then can they continue? Even after getting zero, they still continue. This is something that I think as a house, we should see what it is we need to put in the law to address some of these problems. Member for Narok North.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. In fact, this is a very serious issue, especially in places like Narok, where we have a Lorgorian gold mines. I was lucky enough in the last parliament to be part of the committee that actually formulated the Mining Act. And all these things were provided for. And Parliament was actually informed that a lot of minerals are found in Kenya. But unfortunately, whenever we put money into the mapping out of these areas, somehow it was always frustrated, such that the government could not map out these areas. And what has happened is that a lot of these minerals are actually smuggled out of Kenya through porous borders like the Tanzanian border and such places. So unless this parliament ensures that money is put into mapping out these areas, I can assure this House that people are minting billions at the expense of the Kenyan people. So this is something, as you said, Honorable Speaker, that should be looked into seriously, because if we don't, nobody will ever do it outside this parliament, because there are so many very strong and powerful beneficiaries. In fact, like in Narok, I understand there are very funny, strange Chinese people found along the border of Kenya and Tanzania. They are doing a lot of mining, but nobody in Kenya minds about it. So I think it's something, as you said, that this parliament should look into. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
In fact, Honorable Kenta, you are just speaking to what is on the streets. They say that even when you give them these road contracts, even as they send their people, they go looking for minerals. So I don't know. We need to really revive our institutions. Member for Kiharu.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. And I actually really want to concur with you, Mr. Speaker, because I have sat in Public Accounts Committee, and I don't think there is any sector that is more shrouded, Honorable Badi, kindly hold.
No, just proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I want to concur with you because there is no sector that is more shrouded with cloud than mining. And even in terms of the royalties that we actually receive as a country, I think we need to give it more seriousness as a house and as a country, because I believe Kenya is very rich with the minerals. But unlike agriculture, which we can see, touch, perceive, and understand, there is a lot of ambiguity around mining and lack of information. And Mr. Speaker, also, I think we give a wide berth to local small miners, Mr. Speaker, and of course giving advantage to big corporations in terms of mining. And it's good that we borrow from countries like South Africa, Botswana, that we can mainstream the small miners and actually bring much more effect to the economy than the extractive big corporations. And also, Mr. Chair, it is worrying because actually checking acacia mining, if you go to a place like Tanzania, where they are still doing some works, they have actually 5 local companies they deal with. And I don't think it is correct or right for us to have a country making that kind of amount of money, because I believe they make a lot of money from Kenya and of course lack local presentation. I also want to challenge even the ministry to check the facts right, because in February 2020, acacia mining was actually bought by Santa Gold, the operations of Kenya and East Africa, so that even as we report to the House, we report with the right names of the companies, because as it starts now, the operations of acacia are actually under Santa Gold. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I concur with you and the other members that we can drive a lot of money from mining. We just need to get the facts right, understand the sector, so that we can remove the lead that shrouds the entire mining sector.
Member for Endebess.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak to this mining issue. I think, Honorable Speaker, considering the way even issues to deal with oil exploration in Turkana, apparently an alarm was rung almost several months ago that Talo was not doing well. And apparently, I think there is a conspiracy within our own professionals and the civil service. And this goes even to the mining area, because you'll find that there are people who have the licenses for exploration, and they stay with them for a very long time. And these people also cover within certain regions that to not allow other people to be able to go and see what is within those areas. So I think this, for example, when you go to even my neighboring in the Pokot area, Jepkarat area and other places, there are people still exploring and mining gold. But that gold is in small quantities and is not benefiting the country, but is benefiting individuals. And as my colleague, Honorable Kenda, said, it is also because of these porous borders that people are able to do it, smuggling of gold and other expensive minerals. You will talk of other minerals like issues of even tanzanites, issues of even rubies and others, which are illegally being taken out of the country. So I think it's something that we need to streamline our civil service and the ministry to be able to reap these benefits for the country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Mlele.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to add my voice to this important matter. My constituency, especially the area known as Ekwanda in Luanda South, is also involved in this so-called exploration for gold. The people there have been extracting this gold on a small artisanal scale. But recently, in the recent years, there have been companies which have been allegedly licensed by the Ministry of Mining and which are purportedly carrying out exploration activities. And these exploration activities have now been taken up by the administration, which is the local chiefs there and the county government, to be of to take out all these artisanal young people who eke out a living from these activities. Yet these alleged licensed explorers still buy the rare earth from these young people and export it. I have been told, I was actually informed of this 2 weeks ago when I was there, that they export these
Mr. Wycliffe Ogalo, who is the Commissioner General of Prisons, joining us today, together with his colleague Duncan Ogore, Director of Operations. Fellow Kenyans, there have been concerns from a cross-section of Kenyans as to the low number of samples we have tested over the past few days, begging the question as to whether this is an indication that the virus is no longer spreading. Let me explain the reason why we have tested fewer samples lately. As we have severally before stated, the global supply chain for COVID-19 testing kits has been and continues to be unstable due to the huge global demand. The ministry's supply chain for these commodities has been unsteady lately, and hence the low number of samples tested. We ran quickly out of the kits, and therefore that is why you see we had few samples like the ones we reported yesterday that we tested. As to whether these low numbers of samples tested and the resultant low number of confirmed positives mean that the virus is disappearing, I want to state here categorically and certainly not. And I want to caution that such a mindset, the mindset that thinks we now have low numbers being tested and low positives, that we are okay and we have beaten the virus. I want to caution that such a mindset will only breed complacency, which would have a disastrous effect. The virus is very much in our midst with full-blown community transmission. Let us not for a moment think that we have beaten the virus. We cannot relent on our efforts in containing its spread. The good news is that we have now received 150,000 tests, which are currently being distributed to the testing laboratories. So in the coming days, we expect to see that the number of tests we carry out on a daily basis will rise now that we have these commodities in place. And these new kits will boost our testing capacity as we continue to fight against the coronavirus disease. We also have another 300,000 test kits that are in the pipeline and that we hope we shall receive before we exhaust these supplies that we have just received. So I think going forward we should see better performance in our testing. Our testing, targeted testing, continues to focus on areas we consider high risk and hotspots. In recent days, we have seen a number of counties recording increased numbers of confirmed cases. We want to keep a keen eye on the spread of the virus in some of these counties that are registering increased numbers. These are some of the areas that we shall be concentrating in order to determine the level of spread and deploy intervention measures. Of course, testing of contacts continues to be an important area of testing. Fellow Kenyans, the testing that we have so far carried out, both at the national and county levels, has shown that the positivity rate has yet to come down to the point that we would desire. In the last 1 week, following the relaxation measures by His Excellency, the President, the positivity rate is still hovering at a level that still remains high for our liking. It is for this reason that we are appealing to our fellow Kenyans not to lower your guard. We are also joining the rallying call by members of the Religious Interfaith Council in appealing to all our political leaders to assist us in this fight against COVID-19 by curtailing their heightened political activities that are bound to draw huge crowds. If we do not strictly adhere to the containment measures, particularly those of avoiding gatherings, whether social or political, we shall have only ourselves to blame when we are hit by a second wave of this deadly virus. So far, we have done well in combating the virus through the other measures of hand washing, wearing of face masks in public places, and keeping social and physical distance. And we want to continue to appeal and urge our citizens to continue to observe these measures, because these are measures within their own control and they can take responsibility for these measures. But our worry and concern is on the re-energized political frenzy sweeping the country and spearheads between having a safe country and a second wave. The choice is all ours. Turning now to our COVID-19 statistics for the past 24 hours, I want to report that 1,258 samples were tested. Of these, 137 have tested positive, bringing to 39,586 the number of confirmed positive cases in the country. Our cumulative tests stand at 566,536. From the 137 cases, the 137 cases are mostly Kenyans. In terms of gender, 94 are male, 43 are females. The youngest is a 1-year-old child, the oldest is 81. Nairobi continues to record the highest number of positives over the past 24 hours, registering 64 cases. Turkana comes in second with 34 cases, Mombasa 12 cases, Kiambu 8, Uasin Gishu 6, Trans Nzoia 4, Meru 1, Nakuru 1, Kajiado, Kericho, Kisii, Kisumu, Laikipia, Machakos, and Tharaka Nithi, 1 case each. If we look at the 64 cases in Nairobi County, they come from Starehe, 35, Westlands 13, Dagoretti North 4, Langata 3, Makadara 2, Embakasi Central, Embakasi East, Embakasi South, Kasarani, Kibra, Roysambu, and Ruaraka, 1 case each. Turkana has recorded an unusual number of cases, 34 cases, over the past 24 hours. These 34 cases come from Turkana West, 33, Turkana Central, 1. I will expound a little later about this particular situation. In Mombasa, the 12 cases are from Vita, 5, Nyali 4, Kisauni 2, Changamwe 1. In Kiambu, the 8 cases are from Juja, Kiambu Town, and Ruiru, 2 cases each. Gatundu North and Kiamba, 1 case each. In Uasin Gishu, the 6 cases are from Ainabkoi and Keses, 2 cases each. Moiben and Tarbo, 1 case each. The Trans Nzoia 4 cases are from Cherengani and Kiminini, 2 cases each. The breakdown of the rest of the counties is given in the document that you will receive. I'm happy to inform you that today 296 people have recovered from the disease. 228 from the home-based care program and 68 have been discharged from various hospitals. The total recoveries now stand at 27,331. We continue to thank our healthcare workers for the good work they are doing to save the lives of our people. Unfortunately, we have also lost another 8 patients to the disease, bringing the cumulative deaths to 743. Our sincere condolences to the families and friends of those who have lost their loved ones. I want now to talk a little bit about today's numbers. As we have stated today, we tested 1,258, of which 137 turned out positive. This will show you very quickly that our positivity rate for today is above 10%. And I need to explain why we have registered such a high positivity rate for the past 24 hours. I want to inform you that we have noticed that there has been an increase in the number of COVID cases in our prisons, particularly the Nairobi Industrial Remand Prison. For instance, of the 64 cases that Nairobi reported for the past 24 hours, 35 out of these 64 cases are prisoners. That is 55% of the number of confirmed cases in Nairobi over the past 24 hours came from Nairobi Remand Prison. Equally, when you look at the Turkana, which had another large number, 33 of the 34 cases from Turkana come from the Kakuma refugee camp. And in this camp, those 33 cases, we know that 10 of those cases are new arrivals into the refugee camp. So with regard to what we have seen in the Nairobi Remand Prison, it has now been directed that from tomorrow, the Nairobi Remand Prison will cease to receive any remandees, and it will be in a closed down mode. Already we know that the prisons have implemented the protocols quite strictly. We know that the Industrial Remand Prison, they have followed our protocol of not allowing any visitations or any other external visitors coming into that environment. This directive now stops remandees being transferred to that facility until such time that we can contain the situation in that facility and bring down the numbers of those who are infected. So again, once more to repeat, starting tomorrow, the Nairobi Remand Prison will not be receiving any remandees from any other facilities. At the same time, it has been directed that the prisons department, the police service, and the court systems will get together and determine a system and framework of working while the Nairobi Remand Prison will not be accepting any remandees starting tomorrow. This is to curtail the movement of persons in and out. We have to contain this situation. Fortunately, a prison system is a closed system and very easy to manage in terms of containment measures. So this, we hope, will be able to bring a break to transmission. Remember, transmissions in systems like this are brought from outside. Those remandees come from our own communities. They end up in the police cells. They end up in the remand prison, and then they end up with the general prison population. So we need to break that cycle of transmission, and that is why that action is being taken. The justice sector, that's the judiciary, police, and prisons, as I said earlier, are expected to work on a mechanism to deal with this emerging issue to ensure the criminal justice system is not disrupted. I want to thank you, and I also want to thank our colleagues from the Prisons Department for being with us today to consult with us and to share with us the situation that exists in the prisons. Thank you, and I think we are now ready to take a few questions.
Okay, Nita Nkonga from NTV. I have two questions. My first one is that the Ministry of Education continues to be very inconsistent in how they announce the reopening of schools. Just today they've announced that a couple more grades will be resuming school. How confident is the Ministry of Health with this statement, considering the fact that in one of the statements they released today was that they're finding social distance is going to be a very difficult situation in schools, and that is one of the main things that the Ministry of Health reiterates time and time again in a bid to curtail the virus. My second question is regarding the Uganda-Kenya border. There seems to be a backlog of truck drivers that are allowed into Uganda. Some leave Mombasa with a certificate for COVID-19 clearance. Others don't, and when they get to the border, they're held up along with those that haven't been tested yet. And by the time that they're able to cross the border, their certificates have expired. Could you please comment on this?
Sada Hassan from KTN News. My question is on the numbers that you have mentioned today, the positive cases. Is this from backlog that we have witnessed in the country, or these are active cases that you have mentioned today? And also, number two is yesterday, from the statement that the ministry presented about COVID, it showed that an average of about 200 to 400 people, that is the attack rate of the COVID-19 has been recorded in Nairobi and Mombasa, yet the national attack rate is at about 85. And in the country right now, we've seen that a lot of spaces have been opened up, people are allowed to travel. Is this a worry for you as a ministry, because other counties that were once not recording huge numbers are now recording huge numbers?
Hi, my name is Graham Kajila from The Standard. My question is with regard to testing. Have you thought of probably reaching out to the company in the US that is producing 15-minute testing kits because of the challenges we have in the country in testing? And at the same time, some few months ago, I think in April, KBC said that it was reported by KBC that it's developing a 15-minute test kit. It's 7 months down the line since the pandemic started. What's the progress?
Okay, thank you. NTV, the Ministry of Education statement. I think we have seen the statement that has been released. As a Ministry of Health, we have very clear and strict protocols that we have provided, and we also do sit down with the various sectors when they are developing sector-specific protocols. We have a great deal of input in that. It still remains a fact that the best way to be able to interrupt transmission of the virus is by having in place some of those measures that we have put in place. Measures such as physical distancing, such as the hygiene, washing of hands, monitoring temperatures, wearing of masks. Now, while these measures might work very well with our adult population, I think you will all agree children are not an easy lot in terms of being able to adhere to these conditions. And I think when they say that, that is what they are referring to. The challenge will be there with schools. You can, yes, impose physical distancing by ensuring that the desks where they sit on have a certain distance and all of that. But do you think you will always be able to keep those kids from being able to move together and come closer to each other? I think that challenge remains, but it is a challenge that is faced everywhere. And I believe when you have the combination of different protocols in place, we should still be able to manage that situation. The world over, opening up schools has been a dilemma. Many places. We have seen schools opened up and closed very quickly. We have seen institutions of higher learning opened up and also closed quickly. And the reason why we also start with institutions of higher learning, and I'm not speaking for the Ministry of Education, but I think the logic is that in a higher institution of learning, you have more adult population, people who can be able to follow certain instructions and keep them. So I think that is an area that is evolving. At any rate, opening up any schools will still have certain levels of risks, but you will not know what those risks are until you actually open up and see how it's working. So it's a challenge that we will have to deal with as we move along, in my view. The issue of the truckers and the backup or snarl up of trucks that we are seeing along the border with Uganda, especially at the Malaba border point. I hear also the Busia border point is building up. As we know now, is a combination of many factors. It is not testing alone. I think there are other issues at play here. We are aware of certain actions that some of our neighbors have taken, which also contribute to this snarl up in terms of their testing procedures. And these matters are under discussion. We have all the various ministries and sectors that are involved discussing how we can resolve this problem once and for all, because if you remember, it's not the first time we have had this snarl up, and we will continue to have them unless we have a coordinated and concerted action that involves all the different sectors. Remember, we have the Ministry of Transport that has a stake in this. We have Interior that has a stake in this. We have Health that has a stake in this. And even the Ministry of Environment has a stake in this. So there are ongoing consultations to try to address that and see what we can do. Part of the strategy that we had adopted to try to stop those, to prevent snarl ups, is to insist that truck drivers do not leave their point of origin before they have a COVID certificate. I think we have gone far in implementing that, because we now have a lab that is solely dealing with truck drivers based in Mombasa Coast General Hospital, that is testing 400 to 500 truck drivers every day and issuing certificates with which they travel now to the border where they should be cleared. But if there are other problems at the border that are created by other reasons, these drivers then also end up being held up in this snarl up. And what you said, that sometimes you may have a driver whose timeline on his COVID certificate is expiring just because they are held up in a snarl up, not on their own fault of not having a test, but because there may be other issues around why that snarl up is happening. So the government is actually very actively looking into this and trying to see how to solve some of these problems. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to improve the level of testing that is available to truck drivers at several points. We are working on a program to try to establish testing points along the northern corridor so that all drivers will have their test certificates before they arrive at the border. KTN. KTN, your question was about largely about the attack rates you mentioned that we talked about yesterday. Actually, the attack rate is highest for Nairobi, which is just over 400 cases for every 100,000 population. I think Mombasa came second with 200 and something per 100,000, and the national average is about 86 cases per 100,000. And it is a parameter that we can look at to see how where the high transmission is happening. It concerns us, yes, when we open up the economy to some extent, as the president did, more than a week ago. The behavior and our response as citizens of this country, how we responded to that opening up, it concerns us very much, and we keep saying that every time we are on the podium, that as Kenyans, let us not relax. Let us not feel that we are, because certain measures have been relaxed, that we have beaten the virus and that we can go back to the way things were. We know very well that that's not going to be the case. If we relax, if we do not observe the measures, we will see a second spike. Some countries are seeing even tertiary and other spikes that come much later on. So our appeal again is to Kenyans to continue to observe those measures, the measures of personal hygiene, washing hands and sanitizing, wearing masks, maintaining physical and social distancing, and most importantly, avoiding public gatherings, whether these are social or political. Public gatherings must be avoided because those are grounds where the virus transmission is highest. Standard, Kajilwa, you talk about the rapid tests, and I think we have explained before that the gold standard test right now for detection of active infection like coronavirus is the real-time PCR test. The real-time PCR test. This is a test that requires a little level of sophistication in terms of the equipment and instruments that are used to run the test, and also the time that it takes to run the test. And I might add also in terms of the cost of the test, it's not a cheap test, it's an expensive test, but it remains the gold standard that will tell you you have an active infection or not. The rapid tests may perform other functions. For example, we have said that the antibody detection test, which detects antibodies in one's blood, and it can be done in 15 minutes or so, simply tells you whether that person is carrying antibodies against coronavirus, indicating that that person was at some point exposed to the virus. That is all it tells us. It cannot conclusively tell us whether that person at the point of testing actually is carrying the virus itself and therefore able to transmit it. That is a limitation of the antibody test. It has purposes. We can use it for the seroprevalence studies that we are carrying out to determine how many of our population, members of our population have been exposed to the virus. So it can inform us on the epidemiology and the immunology of the virus, but it cannot serve the purpose which we need to contain this virus, which is being able to know who is carrying the virus and therefore who do we need to isolate, quarantine, treat, and so on to break the cycle of transmission. There is another test, rapid test, which detects now antigen or a protein from the virus. This test is much closer to the PCR test because it will only detect an antigen or a protein specific to the virus because the virus is present at that time of sampling. So it is close in the sense that it will tell you that there is a virus whose protein has been detected. But it still has a bit of work to be done because it must be sensitive enough to pick up the real cases and to eliminate the negative cases. Sensitivity and specificity, what we call, it must have a certain level of those. However, this test is we are actually undertaking a validation of this test right now. It may have utility in certain areas, and the ministry, together with our partners, who are actually looking at this test, validating it, field evaluating it, and seeing where we could use it, because it will then allow us to have a shorter turnaround time of tests, and it would allow us to test much more people over time. But again, as I said, the gold standard still remains the real-time PCR test. And we can give you further information. If you want, we can be on one-on-one and can give you more information about these testing systems. Thank you very much. Okay.
Murang'a County.
Yes.
Senator Haniri George, Vihiga County. Senator Kibiru Charles Rubenson, Kirinyaga County.
I vote yes.
Senator Kihika Susan Wakarura, Nakuru County. Senator Kimani Wamatangi Paul, Kiambu County. Senator Kindiki Kithure, Tharaka Nithi County. Senator Kirinyaga Ephraim Mwangi Maina, Nyeri County.
I vote yes.
Senator Langat Christopher Andrew, Bomet County. Senator Leleguel Tumbesi, Samburu County. Senator Linturi Franklin Mithika, Meru County.
Yeah, I vote yes.
Senator Loitiptip Anwar, Lamu County. Senator Mazayo Stewart Mwachiru, Kilifi County. Senator Mahamud Mohamed Maalim, Mandera County.
I vote yes.
Senator Malala Cleophas Wahungu, Kakamega County. Senator Mbito Michael Malinga, Trans Nzoia County.
I vote yes.
Senator Mbogo George Ochilo Ayako, Migori County. Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo, Nyamira County. Senator Moi
I vote yes.
Senator Moi Gideon Kipsielei Toet, Baringo County. Senator Mpayei Philip Salau, Kajiado County. Senator Murkomen Onesimus Kipchumba, Elgeyo Marakwet County. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Makueni County.
I vote yes.
Senator Mwangi Paul Githiomi, Nyandarua County.
I vote yes.
Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashushe, Taita Taveta County. Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki, Mombasa County.
I vote yes.
Senator Nderito John Kenywa, Laikipia County. Senator Ndwiga Peter Njeru, Embu County. Senator Olekina Ledama, Narok County. Senator Ongeri Samson Kegengo, Kisii County. Senator Orengo James, Siaya County.
I vote yes.
Senator Outa Frederick Otieno, Kisumu County. Senator Pogisio Samuel Losuron, West Pokot County.
I vote yes.
Senator Sakaja Johnson Arthur, Nairobi County.
I vote yes.
Senator Wako Situila Amos, Busia County.
I vote yes.
Senator Wambua Enoch Keio, Kitui County.
I vote yes.
Senator Wario Golich Juma, Tana River County. Senator Wetangula Moses Masika, Bungoma County.
I vote yes.
Senator Cheriot Aaron Kipkirui. What's the problem? Senator Ali Abdullahi Ibrahim, Wajir County.
Okay, twice, Chair, my name was missed. What happened? Am I not in the list? No. I have the right to ask. No. I'm going to Mimi Muki.
Senator, please voice your vote. Senator Ali, please voice your vote. Thank you. Senator Ali, you are not on. Yes, now you are on.
Okay, I vote yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We have realized where the error was. Yeah.
Senator Kabaka Boniface Mutinda, Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno, Senator Haniri George, Senator Kihika Susan Wakarura, Senator Kimani Wamatangi Paul, Senator Kindiki Kithure, Senator Langat Christopher Andrew, Senator Leleguel Tumbesi, Senator Loitiptip Anwar, Senator Mazayo Stewart Mwachiru, Senator Mbogo George Ochilo Ayako, Senator Mwaruma Jones Mwashushe, Senator Nderito John Kinywa, Senator Ndwiga Peter Njeru, Senator Olekina Ledama, Senator Ongeri Samson Kegengo, Senator Outa Frederick Otieno, Senator Wario Golich Juma.
Honorable Senators, these are the results of the division on the Sectional Properties Bill, National Assembly Bills number 23 of 2019. Ayes 24, nays 0, abstention 0. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the division of buildings into units to be owned by individual proprietors and common property to be owned by proprietors of the units as tenants in common.
Senator Muranga, please. Can you be quiet as the pronouncement is being made on the bill? Yeah, go ahead, clerk.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the division of buildings into units to be owned by individual proprietors and common property to be owned by proprietors of the units as tenants in common, and to provide for the use and management of the units and common property and for connected purposes.
Thank you. Next order. Yes, point of order from Senator Wetangula.
Speaker, for those of us who appreciate and value the decorum in this House, we get disturbed when the Speaker is on her feet announcing the outcome of a division, and members, including the majority whip, are busy laughing away the afternoon and congregating as if it's a kamkunji. Where is decorum in this House, Madam Speaker? When we came to this House for the first time, Mr. Speaker, and continuously, and my distinguished colleague, the ambassador here, can bear me out, when the Speaker stands, he or she doesn't need to say order. Order comes naturally in the House. But now, Madam Speaker, you are standing up to announce the results of a division, and as if you are not even in the chair. Where is this House getting to, Madam Speaker? We want to urge members to uphold decorum of this House. Otherwise, we cease to be a House. We can be a baraza if we wish.
Another point of order from Senator Kilonzo Mutula.
I was going to suggest, Madam Speaker, that unlike the substantive chair who raises his voice, when you're on the chair, I think the people out there should increase the volume so that you can be heard. You are soft, and if there's a possibility that Kangata, on top of his, when he's laughing, your voice disappears.
Thank you, Senators. I think the mask is the problem. Because as my student confirmed, I lectured in a lecture hall of 3,000, and they had. My biggest problem is with this mask, so maybe I was not being heard. But yes, I think Senator Wetangula has been repeating this. Please, this is a house of decorum and order, and let's respect that. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 10, the Community Health Services Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2020, second reading.
Honorable Senators, this is a resumption of debate, and Senator Okongo Mogeni had a balance of 11 minutes, if he wishes to use all of it. Thank you, Senator Mogeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I may not use the entire 11 minutes because I'd already almost summed up my thoughts. But I want to proceed from where it stopped, Madam Speaker, and emphasize that community volunteers has always been based on the concept of people want to volunteer their services to enhance community health care. So, Madam Speaker, I want to still persuade the sponsor of this bill that if we can move this bill from the idea of having community health workers to community health volunteers, this bill will be very, very helpful to our counties. In fact, Madam Speaker, in terms of wage bill, if we all interact with our counties, if you speak to the health executives in most counties, already our health sector wage bill is taking almost 50% of the total wage bill in our counties. Like in my particular case, in the county government of Nyamira, 50% of our wage bill is taken by people who serve in the health sector. So if we again push the community health workers to be absorbed into the wage bill of counties, we are talking, Madam Speaker, of if you just take an estimate of the county government of Nyamira, you'll be talking about an increase in the wage bill of over 1 billion. Madam Speaker, having fought very hard for enhanced allocation to the county government of Nyamira, the most we'll be able to get if Treasury will avail 50 billion next year, will be 5.1 billion. So, Madam Speaker, if we surrender another 1 billion to be taken care of by wage bill, it means that the county government of Nyamira may not even have money for development. Another point, Madam Speaker, I wanted to make is that it is impossible. I don't see what mechanism can be put in place whereby all the community health care volunteers in serving in various counties in the Republic, and whom I must say are doing a very good job, can be absorbed into the wage bill without going through interviews, etc. Madam Speaker, I was receiving a report today of an outbreak of one case of COVID that happened in one of my local markets in Nyamira, in Ikonge. And when I was speaking to the CEC Health, in fact, he told me that he had already gotten in touch with the community health care workers to mobilize the contacts of the people who had gotten in touch with that patient. I mean, that goes to show how important these people are to our communities. So I want to really say that Senator Zani, who sponsored this particular bill...
Honorable Senators, please consult in low tones. He's making a very important point.
Senator Zani, who came up with this bill, has fantastic ideas, and we should not kill this baby. We should save this baby. And I propose that we should propose amendments that make this bill to retain the original intention of community health care workers, which is volunteerism, and remove this technical word of them being workers from this bill. I think if we do a few of those amendments, this is a bill that I fully support, and I want to applaud the people in my county of Nyamira and in other counties who have for many years volunteered their services towards enhancing health care within our counties. Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm told there is a point of order. Yes, Madam Speaker, I'm getting some interruption from Senator Cherage. I don't know what point of order he has.
There is a point of order from Senator Cherage. Samson?
Madam Speaker, with all due respect to my learned senior and the senior counsel, Madam Speaker, I think Senator Mutula Kilonzo raised a very important. We are having a problem in terms of hearing, so we were requesting the guys in charge of these gadgets to at least increase at least a bit of volume, because it's hard to follow what my learned senior, and I would like to drink from the fountain of his wisdom as he dispensed freely. So, Madam Speaker, can you kindly guide the department to at least improve on the volume so that we are very able to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Can we have the volume increased, please? Our audio team. Thank you. You can wind up, Senator Omogeni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So in winding up, Madam Speaker, I fully support this bill with the suggested amendments. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Bito, that was your turn. Sakaja, did you put? Okay, Senator Sakaja and then Bito.
Why should you be first? No. The chair speaks last. Madam Speaker, the chair of health should actually speak last because he needs to take into account what members have spoken to this bill. This is second stage, and members have very different analysis. I want to applaud the good Senator Zani for this bill. Madam Speaker, healthcare workers are a core part of our healthcare system. And if you look at the memorandum and objects of this bill, it really addresses the issue of focus on the community. Madam Speaker, this comes at a time when we're looking at the most noble of professions, which is healthcare, our doctors, our nurses, our medical officers, and our teachers. Those were the professions that in the past were regarded as the most noble. In fact, Madam Speaker, in a community, when you'd ask anybody what they want to do, they would either want to be a nurse or a teacher or a doctor. These days, everybody wants to study procurement. I don't understand what happened. Procurement is the most sought after course these days. Madam Speaker, on Thursday, 15th of April 2020, while chairing the Committee on COVID, and after chairing 70-something sessions, I became a healthcare volunteer. And I got to learn a lot about these CHWs. Madam Speaker, we met a consortium of community health workers led by one Julius Mbeya of Luala Community Alliance. We met Financing Alliance for Health, Dr. Angela Gishaga, Amref Health Kenya, Dr. Meshak Ndirangu, Medic Mobile, Ms. Doreen Kuduoli, NI Africa, Mr. Victor Rotich, Carolina for Kibera, Mr. Umala, we had Dandelion Africa, Mr. Wendo, and Living Goods. And Madam Speaker, they brought to the fore not just the great work that community health volunteers have been able to do in this country, but also the challenges. And not just the opportunities that present themselves if we focus on community health services, but also on the successes that have been seen across the world. Madam Speaker, the greatest pointer of the impact of community health workers was in the fight against Ebola. Madam Speaker, in West Africa, CHWs played a critical role in driving the success of the Ebola pandemic response. And the world still wonders how we're able to deal with something that was much more contagious, deadly than even COVID. Madam Speaker, you get Ebola on a Friday, by Sunday you're dead. But because of community health volunteers, and I want to acknowledge them, especially the ones in my county, Nairobi County, they are the ones who know each and every household. They are the ones who know who stays where, which family has which pre-existing conditions, where is their diabetes, who didn't get a polio shot, who has not been vaccinated, who is pregnant, and where do we expect a new child. And Madam Speaker, one of the key issues in designing an effective healthcare system, because COVID has shown us the vulnerability and the soft underbelly of our healthcare system, the most important factor is information. Madam Speaker, information becomes power. And that is why, in fact, I believe we need to relook at this MESS report. The issue of healthcare information system is extremely important. It helps you know what to procure. It helps you know which kind of drugs are needed in which area. It helps you know what epidemic or outbreak is likely to come out from a certain area. and what people are dealing with. Madam Speaker, that has not been done, despite the huge investment that was put in to address the issue of information. Madam Speaker, there is need to strengthen the community health strategy of this country. And even during, in dealing with the pandemic, and I pray that it's going contact tracing, in psychosocial support, to increase financing for health and greater investment by counties. Madam Speaker, county governments must lead in funding community health volunteers. Community health volunteers, and I'm glad Senior Counsel Omogeni has insisted we call them that, because once you call them workers, it brings some complications. But Madam Speaker, community health volunteers should be given a minimum, and this came out of a discussion with them, a minimum of half of the minimum wage, Madam Speaker, as a monthly stipend. Madam Speaker, for Nairobi County, the thousands of healthcare volunteers, because I am proud as a senator for Nairobi that I pushed the allocation from an additional 100 to an additional 3.3 billion. If 1 billion is set aside for community health volunteers, Madam Speaker, we can have more than 10,000 of them being paid in Nairobi County. That investment in the community health volunteers will reduce the cost or the amount of money being spent in the health docket, because we've seen a lot of preventative interventions actually reduce the burden and the cost of healthcare, because you have less need for drugs, you have less need for hospitalization, and some communicable diseases like cholera, like, those outbreaks that are happening because of cleanliness actually go down in the community. So I would advocate and I would urge the county assembly as they're budgeting, because now we're able to do 19 billion in the next financial year. The 19 billion that's coming to Nairobi, set aside $1 billion for community health volunteers. I have seen them, I've interacted with them, the ones in Mutuini, in Dagoretti South, in Roysambu, in Kibera, in Mathare, in Molem, in Embakasi, in Pipeline. They know what the health challenges are in each and every part of my county, and I am pushing that we set aside $1 billion shillings from the additional, because we were only going to get 100 million. Now we have 3 billion more. Just 1 billion can help us reduce even how much we're spending on Mbagathi Hospital, on Mamalusi Hospital, on the hospitals around this city in the sub-counties, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we've seen how they've helped in the issue of reproductive and maternal health care. A lot of the mothers, sometimes labor comes unexpectedly, especially when there's no elective cesarean being planned. And Madam Speaker, many of them have had to give birth at home. It is these community health volunteers who have been able to assist. Madam Speaker, in the spread of TB and HIV and AIDS, being able to bring down the numbers. And this is one area where our country has performed actually well. And many parts of this country have performed well. It's just subsections that are lagging behind because of different reasons. It is community health volunteers who have been able to actually help sensitize the community, help people understand what they need to do, and reduce the spread of this disease. Madam Speaker, I pray that this bill, and even as we look at it deeper, talks about proper structured supervision and support through deployment of sufficient community health assistance in planning interventions. These community health volunteers are not just workers. They need to be engaged in planning interventions, because the information and knowledge they have, Madam Speaker, of communities, because this country is built from the family to the community and then to the larger society. But the information and wealth of information they have on the community does not go hand in hand with the manner in which we've been able to provide for them. Madam Speaker, we are opening schools, and part of what has not been done well, and I expected the Chair for Education, who is sitting next to me, to give us a statement on the announcement we've had, because children have been at home for a long time. Many of them need some support, even psychosocial support. Teachers need that. People have lost loved ones. Families have lost livelihoods. Madam Speaker, parents have been given a week, and I think that decision was hastened, was done too quickly, because in a week, I'll tell you, anybody here who has children below the age of 10 will tell you that in these last 6 months, they have gained weight. Many of them, they have gained weight. These children will need new uniform, and they'll need a lot of intervention. So I think Committee of Health, you need to get into that. I think Class 8 and Form 4 are maybe where they were. But the point I was making was that with a properly structured community health system, they would be able to have known that these are behaviors that have come out in society. We've seen a heightened case of teenage pregnancies, and there's need for not just sensitization, but psychosocial support to our children. The best people to do that would be enabled, facilitated community health volunteers across the ward. They go lower than the ward in the villages. Those are the ones who should be able to play this role. So, Madam Speaker, we really need to challenge counties. And I think Senator Mugeni started a line of thought that he dropped along the way. I think because he was interrupted by his former chair of JLAC. That line of thought is important, Senator Mugeni. I think if we acknowledge as a Senate how critical community health is, in the next CARA, Madam Speaker, I would urge the Senate of the Republic of Kenya to actually to ring fence allocations for community health volunteers in each county. There is no county that does not have CHVs, but there is no county that is engaging them properly, that is even giving them a stipend. So if the governors won't appropriate and the county assemblies won't budget for them, the Senate can actually ring fence in the County Allocation of Revenue Act of the next financial year resources for community health volunteers. And we will be able to see, Madam Speaker, in less than 2 subsequent financial years, a reduction in the health burden in terms of costing, Madam Speaker. So the health strategy is outdated, and I'm sure Senator Zani has done enough research. If you look at the even policy papers and the sessionals that came, they're outdated. That needs to be revived. And the CS for Health needs to think about that critically, together with county governments, the compensation. Today, Madam Speaker, we have around 60,000 community health workers with a reach of over 9 million households, Madam Speaker. If properly deployed, will cover the whole country. 60,000, 10,000 of whom are in Nairobi only, you know. And that's why I've calculated how much it would cost. And I urge the county government and the NMS, because this has been transferred to NMS, General Badi and the director, I think her name is Josephine, to actually appropriate money for this. And my good friend Oluga, who understands, because he's been a doctor, and he knows by the time a patient is coming, the intervention that has been done, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you look at the bill, beyond the objects, Senator Zani is talking about inclusivity and equity. During the debate we had on the formula, Madam Speaker, it was clear that the parameter on healthcare was being measured poorly, because a huge percentage of it was being measured on the number of visits to a hospital. Madam Speaker, there are counties with no hospitals to visit. And then a small percentage was on the facility gap. Madam Speaker, if we're talking about equity and inclusivity, we need to rethink how we develop these indexes or indices that tell us the need and burden of healthcare. There are some counties like Makueni, where because how vast the county is and how spaced the facilities are, you don't have that number of visits for simple things that can be cured using herbs, marubaini, and such things. But in counties like mine in Nairobi, where a health center is very close to you, somebody will go for a very simple thing to get assistance. But then conversely, Nairobi will need much more drugs, investment in drugs, than Makueni would, because of the number of people. I think we saw a lack of creativity in how these indices were being formulated, and I hope the health committee, chaired by Senator Mbito, who is a doctor who understands these issues, will actually help recalibrate how we inform these indices. Because any formula used is as good or as bad as the thought that has been put in how you measure that index that you're looking at. Madam Speaker, this bill pushes for collaboration between both levels of government, which is necessary. It has not been going on. We just gave the example of agriculture, where governors are up in arms that the regulations that they have not been involved in, yet they're the ones who are supposed to execute it. And I'm sure this lack of coordination, this silo mentality is existing in healthcare as well, and in other sectors. There needs to be coordination, and I hope this can be implemented, as well as qualifications, the technical resources, the structures required, the reporting tools that are needed. And the county government then implements that national policy and standards on community health services, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, importantly as well, there is specific roles that have been given to specific people. The CEC for Health in the county has been given a specific role in Section 9, or is it Clause 9, to actually ensure the effective performance of the functions and to delegate the performance of any function specified to such public officers within the respective department as may be necessary. Madam Speaker, I'll be bringing in a few amendments, and I hope I'll have a chance to discuss them with Senator Zani or with the Committee on Health, because, Madam Speaker, the practicality of some of these provisions in a county of 17 constituencies and 85 wards and 4.3 million people, there are certain ways we need to strengthen how we address all of those community health volunteers, and especially in a city like Nairobi. And I hope the Committee of Health has not exhausted public participation on this bill. I hope at least they've undertaken it. Madam Speaker, in concluding, because while recognizing what community health volunteers have done, and today being World International Teachers Day, I must also recognize what teachers of this country have been able to do. It's the teachers who've taught these doctors and community health volunteers. It's the teachers who've taught us. And Madam Speaker, I want to recognize specifically teachers who have taught me and who have made me who I am today, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, from Ms. Lusala, who taught me how to hold a pen in class 1 properly, to Mrs. Wafula, to Ms. Danji, to Ms. Kibutu and Ms. Mganga at Lenana, to Ms. Kihumba, who refused for me to be demoted when I was not in class 7 and said if Sakaja is no longer a prefect, there'll be no peace in this school, and I was reinstated as a prefect. Those teachers do not know how they mold society, because the impact of a teacher to a young child stays for life, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to acknowledge them. I want to acknowledge Mr. Kengwe and Mr. Wala, who caned me thoroughly and brought me back to line and helped me get my A in maths and physics, despite being very naughty in Form 1 and Form 2. But they brought me back to line. I want to acknowledge them and tell them that their names have been read out in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. And that naughty boy you thought was naughty, today is a senator, because you are a good teacher, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this morning we were debating with my cousins on our WhatsApp group, and they said that all our parents were teachers. Actually, all my mother's sisters, apart from my mother, of course, she was a teacher as a mother, were teachers. From Grace Namasaka, the late, to Esther Muhanji, who I'm sure Senator Wetangula and Kaniri know. She's been a leading light. She led Bunyore Girls for the longest time and made sure it's successful as a national school. And today in Mbale, Namasaka, comes from your county, Senator Wetangula, and all of them, because there were many, there was a family of 12. Madam Speaker, we acknowledge the role teachers play, including yourself, because you have been a teacher at the university. And sometimes even when you're here in the house, you go back to being a teacher. And we acknowledge the role that teachers play. We want to urge the government to stop trying to break the Kenyan National Union of Teachers. Teachers need a strong union. And as Chair of Labour, we will not allow any breakdown in unions. The Constitution talks about the right of, and the Labour Relations Act talks about the right of any worker to unionize, including community health volunteers, including teachers, to be able to come together to agitate for their rights. That is a right that cannot be taken away by the TSC. That's a right that cannot be taken away by trying to starve off the National Union of Teachers, or is it CUPET, of funds. That we will resist. It goes against this constitution. Madam Speaker, the battles that were fought by trade unionists who helped deliver this country, led by Tom Mboya, in those days, Madam Speaker, we shall not let that go to waste. I salute teachers in Nairobi County. They have the largest burden because of the number of students that they have. Madam Speaker, teachers, community health volunteers, we are here to fight for you, and we hope that this bill passes, and later on, substantively, we shall address, and Chair of Health Education next to me, we shall address that very burning issue of the teachers of this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, for the 4 members who are on the list, I want to plead with you, because I cannot change the time, I cannot limit the time at this stage, but I want you to be conscious of the fact that we are going on recess in the next 2 days, and there are very important bills also that we would like to finish alongside this one. So I'm pleading that you use your discretion to reduce your time of contribution to the very minimum. Senator Wetangula Moses Masika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me see if I can compress my thoughts in the next 10 minutes. Madam Speaker, this is a bill that requires all of us to support. The other day, Madam Speaker, I think last Monday, when we had the COVID conference at KICC, I was happy to hear that since COVID hit Kenya, the positive side effect is that diseases like diarrhea, dysentery, and cholera have all disappeared. Why? Because of the improvement of personal hygiene. Madam Speaker, when we were growing up in the villages, there were people who are envisaged in this bill by Senator Zani, whom I salute for the bill, called Bora Afya. They were in every village, Madam Speaker. They were called Bora Afya. They went to every homestead, showing homes how to have a pit latrine and maintain it, showing homes how to manage their drinking water wells, showing homes how to eliminate mosquitoes by destroying their breeding areas around houses, showing homes, Madam Speaker, how to clear rodents, showing homes how to keep health as a primary issue in every family. And with that, Madam Speaker, we ended up with very robust health population. Today, Madam Speaker, if you go to all our counties, health is 95% devolved. But what we have devolved are problems. You go to the villages, Madam Speaker, health centers, dispensaries, and all those units have no medicines, people come there just to die, and so on and so forth. It is important, Madam Speaker, that we invest in preventive processes, primary health care, where people are taught basics of hygiene. You may not be a rich person, but you may be taught how to have a balanced diet from the little you have. You may not be a rich person, but you may be taught how to collect water from the available spring and well and boil it and drink it without getting any diseases out of it. You may not have a lot of money, Madam Speaker, but you may be told how to eliminate mosquitoes from your sleeping environment. I remember small boys sleeping in my grandmother's house, Madam Speaker. My grandmother would, as we go to sleep in the evening, put some little dry cow dung in the jiko. And that cow dung will smoke the whole night. And that smoke would eliminate every single mosquito from the room. And we would wake up very well, Madam Speaker. And this used to happen in many homes. And these were people who didn't go. My grandmother never saw any classroom. She did, the only thing she knew was how to say a rosary in a Catholic church, and nothing else. But she knew that we needed to eat well. We needed to sleep in a clean environment. Every morning the house has to be swept. Every Friday the floor had to be smeared by cow dung to eliminate fleas and any other harmful insects that would come into the house. Every day something was done. We used to be conditioned to clear grass around the house so that snakes cannot come into the house to harm us. All this is basic health care that this bill is talking about. And what I would hope that will happen after we pass this bill, Madam Speaker, is to avail sufficient resources. Because out there, in fact, currently, the avenue for theft of public funds in the counties is through construction and health services. That is where most funds are stolen. You'll find, Madam Speaker, like in many counties, all the money you send there for COVID, 200+ million almost in every county. Mine got 213. They can't account for it. They are calling meetings of people to play politics, trick them to sign attendance sheets, and then they go and add figures of money as allowances so that they can appear to be accounting for the money. In fact, Madam Speaker, in the counties, there are so many layers of employment going on now. If this was diverted to primary health care, lives would be improved. I was amused to read the other day, Madam Speaker, that my governor, in his office alone, has 168 casual workers working in his office. Obviously, these are ghosts that they use to steal money. 168 casual workers in the governor's office. Where do they sit in the first place? And what do they do? And where are their names? You can't find them, and yet they're paying them every month. So if this bill, Madam Speaker, is passed, and I have no doubt it will, it's going to be a paradigm shift. And we would want to see that the national government prepares in consultation not only with the counties but with this Senate the formulation of proper policy. Under our new constitution, Madam Speaker, any policy formulated is legislated legislation. It must come to this House so that we improve on it and make it workable for the counties. I want to urge Senator Zani that in clause 10, the committee that you are setting up in the counties for the health services, in clause 10.2, a person is eligible for appointment as a member of the committee if that person is an adult of good standing with the leadership qualities, a member of the community, is literate and can read and write, is not disqualified under unwritten law, meets such requirements that the county executive committee may legislate. There is no mention of any knowledge of a health background, Madam Speaker. At least people who sit in a committee of primary health care must have some basic knowledge of primary health. We have a lot of people, Madam Speaker, who are training as nurses, training as public health, as meat inspectors, as public health record keepers, even as doctors. I know doctors who are graduating and going back to the villages because the government can't employ them. Nobody can employ them because there are no opportunities. They start small clinics here and there. Those are people who are eligible also to chair this kind of committees so that they can impart their knowledge. Because when you say somebody must be an adult and illiterate, you'll find some character who will just go there because they are looking for an income and do nothing to help enhancement of public health care. So I would want to urge the sponsor of the bill to strengthen this clause so that it can be able to give some at least recognition of those people with knowledge in public health. Equally important, Madam Speaker, is the persons who are eligible for appointment as public health workers. We should also emphasize those who are trained. And Madam Speaker, if you go to, and this country has moved a great deal. Right now, there is hardly any county that does not have one or two MTC institutions. And we're training a lot of people. The public cannot absorb all of them. The national government has no capacity to employ them. So these are the sort of people who would then be enlisted as volunteers but be paid a stipend. Like Senator Sakaja said, if we pay attention to this, then our budget for curative processes in health sector would easily go down by 50%, if not more. Because, Madam Speaker, if you go to the village, I went to, last year, Senator Orenga, I went to Embu for the burial of an old man who was 118 years old. And he had never been to any hospital, never been to any dispensary all his life. The only time he went there is when his body literally gave way because of age. And that was the time he succumbed and passed on. A person like that, Madam Speaker, and we have many people who grow up to ages of 80, 90, 100 without ever seeing a doctor. The only person they encounter are the village dressers, nurses, and other public health officers who only advise them on simple things, and as long as you have clean water and all this. And Madam Speaker, you may even realize, and senators here can notice, that since Corona came and the protocols of public health behavior were imposed, common colds have been a thing of the past. You sit in this chamber, and in the whole afternoon, you hardly hear any senator coughing. Previously, there will be a cough shooting from every direction in this chamber.
because of poor public hygiene. We are shaking hands. Somebody has been sneezing in his hands and he stretches to shake your hand. You don't shake the hand, you are arrogant without knowing that you are caring about health. I think even after COVID, and Senator Zani, you need to look at some of the practical and applicable corona protocols and incorporate them in this, because they have been making a very major stride in improving public hygiene, in making people realize and understand that failing to shake hands is not a matter of disrespect for each other, but it's a matter of public health. That failing to sit so closely to each other for no reason is not a matter of arrogance, it's a matter of public hygiene. That looking for going to less crowded places, including churches, including bars, including areas of recreation, is not because you don't want to interact with people, but because it's important that we keep safe distance for purposes of each other's hygiene. And communicable diseases, Madam Speaker, can be eliminated if we impose all this on ourselves. More importantly, Madam Speaker, as I finish, is the need, and I agree with my distinguished nephew, the Senator for Nairobi, that perhaps in the future, as this House helps to design allocation of revenues to counties, we try to also ring-fence some portion of resources that will be geared towards public health. Public health that will help improve health for everybody. There are still places in this country, Madam Speaker, where people just take milk from a cow's udder and drink it. Simple things, tell them, just boil, the milk remains yours, just boil it. Or kids go to the udder and suckle directly. Tell them, don't be in a hurry. The milk will still come out of the udder, it will be boiled. It takes no effort to boil milk and give it to the kid, they'll come out healthier. All these things, Madam Speaker, is what amounts to public health concerns. And we are now going back to the basics. Perhaps those who are young, like Senator Mwaura, don't know that there existed officers in government called Bora Afia. Bora Afia. In my area, we shouldn't be calling them Bora Afia, but they were called Bora Afia. Provided health, good health. Senator Bogisho may remember this. And if we have those now in every village, and Bora Afias, Madam Speaker, were allocated homesteads. One Bora Afia would run 2-3 villages. And every morning, they don't go to the headquarters in Bungoma or in Siaya. You live in the village, you work in the village, you walk from house to house. And when you find that this house is not focusing and agreeing and doing what you have told them to do previously, there were penal sanctions. You will be taken to the village elder then and be punished and be made to go and sweep on the local market and be humiliated before your own children and your own wife and your own family members to see you are grown up sweeping on the market. But these were sanctions that were very important. And I can see in this bill that we don't have sufficient sanctions because where we want to impose, you know, Kenyans are very indisciplined, Dr. Sani, that even if you are telling them to do something very good that benefits them, unless there are attendant sanctions, they don't follow. So put in some sanctions that those who don't do this, if you constantly keep pools of water outside your house, mosquitoes are breeding there, you are catching malaria every other week, you become a burden to the exchequer of your county and the national government, you should be punished for it. Because how long does it take to eliminate pools of water outside your house? Very little. But you find men on the market every day counting cars and playing ubao and doing all sorts of things instead of looking after personal hygiene for themselves and their families. Madam Speaker, this is a very important bill. I support it and I hope we'll pass it and make it very beneficial to our counties, to our population, and to our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Cherargei Samson Gibrotich. Still, let's try to take as short as possible.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to commend Senator Zani for this wonderful bill. I think, I hope it becomes an act of parliament in fullness of time so that It is a good bill, and I want to congratulate Senator Zani, and we look at getting many awards for this bill because it will change many lives. Madam Speaker, protect me from the majority leader. I think he is consulting down loudly with Senator Maura and the Speaker and Senator Lilegwe, so that I can be as efficient as possible. Thank you, Speaker. So I want to congratulate Senator Zani and hope that our counterparts at the National Assembly will expeditiously process and not bring the narrative of the money bill issues. One, I want to say this is important because community health workers, Madam Speaker, are very important, and we have around 6,087 community units across the country, and they have been able to do so many things, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you look under Article 43 of the Constitution, it talks about issues of health as part of economic and social rights. And therefore, Madam Speaker, when you look even at Article 174, the Constitution and Article 10, the Constitution has given powers to communities and to be able to decide their things at their own level. And therefore, I think they are very important. Community health workers, as my colleagues have said, do a lot of things. They ensure their maternal services, and I know some of us, because of the community health workers, we were being able to be born, and many people are born in their homes. It is because of this. And even nutrition issues, extension services, just like the way we do extension services, even the agricultural issues. Madam Speaker, the key issue, because most of the issues have been highlighted by my colleagues, is they also assist in promotion of health rights. These are people who will go to house, the community. They will be able to sensitize. They will be able to teach even issues of communicable and non-communicable diseases in our communities and villages, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, they are very critical also in home-based care, Madam Speaker. You know very well, Madam Speaker, that most of our people sometimes are chronically ill, like because of cancer or many other diseases. These the community health workers are very critical. They go there and maybe change, give them injections, clean them, advise the family on how they should take care of the sick and who are chronically sick or terminally sick. And I think they are very important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know Senator Msuruve will be happy about this. It is also the community health workers who assist the people living with disability by ensuring they bring a link, they create a data and ensure that people living with disability are given the health attention they deserve. So people living with disability also, Madam Speaker, they also participate in community-based surveillance. These are the people you use for community-based surveillance in many issues, apart from volunteer work that they do. They also assist in mitigating health disparities. Because now Article 43 of the Constitution on Economic and Social Rights, it has created that health is one of the basic human rights. And therefore, how do you bridge them and mitigate disparity? Because, for example, in Nandi, we have 196 health centers against 887,000 plus residents of County of Nandi. So how do you bridge and ensure access to health care is achieved? It is not, at this point, governors should note very well. It doesn't mean that when you construct so many buildings, so many health infrastructure, it doesn't mean you have improved in the access of health care in this country. And therefore, I'm saying that this one will assist in mitigate the access to health services. Madam Speaker, the issue also of offices and the vulnerable in the society, it is also the role of community health workers that assist us in many things, Madam Speaker. The issue of mental health and gender-based violence, I think this is a new area where community-based health workers will assist in isolating and be able to discuss and give us these issues, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have seen, and I wish Senator Zani should be listening to this, I have read when they drafted the Kenya Community Health Policy of 2020-2030, and one of the key of this policy is to create SDGs, the development, one of the SDGs, is it Sustainable Development Goals? SDGs is one of the key issue is the universal health care. Madam Speaker, it is very sad as Jubilee, we had the Big Four agenda. One of the Big Four agenda was universal health care. If the universal health care had left the shelves of State House, Madam Speaker, I can assure you this issue of community health care workers would have been taken care of, because it is part of wider universal health care coverage, Madam Speaker. When you look at Kenya Community Health Policy 2020-2030, which is 10 years, it is very important because it tries to create a space and a niche for the community health workers. And I'm happy that policy now might not have the legal enforcement or legal impetus, but by the fact that Senator Zani's bill has tried to give that validation, that legislative intervention, I hope that it will be very important. Madam Speaker, even when, you know, there are many issues of community health workers, they also assist in tracing immunization. I am told, I don't know how true this, maybe the doctors in the House can tell us, Madam Speaker, that because of our immunization, we might have not, the COVID might not have spread as fast as it should have been, because most African countries and even Kenya, Madam Speaker, are used for immunization. And these community health workers, if a child is born in the village or where some of us grew up in, the person who will be able to trace this, whether they have been immunized or not, are community health workers. They also assist in behavioral change in terms of communication, because especially they understand the local language. They can be able to create a link within the doctors and themselves, and even teenagers. I had my colleagues talk about early teenage pregnancy, Madam Speaker, and I think these are the people that you can use to intervene at the village level, at Kibra, at other informal settlements, and ensure that. Madam Speaker, they can also participate in environmental cleanliness. I think Senator Wetangula has really put into place that issue by ensuring that there is that issue. Madam Speaker, on the principle, I think we need coordinated public participation, and this one goes without saying, and I think it is very important. Madam Speaker, the only issue, and I want to, with amendments to this bill, is the financing of the community health services. Then when you look at the policy that had been given by Ministry of Health, they have said the national government will commit. They say the county government will commit. They have said we will talk to our partners. I want to advise Senator Zani, if there is a way we can ensure it becomes an obligation. Because, Madam Speaker, under Article 43 of the Constitution of 2010, it is an obligation. A right is not a privilege. It is an obligation. And therefore, when you see the ministry coming up with a policy says, we will commit, it can either happen or not. And therefore, I think on the issue of financing of the community health services, duties of community health volunteers, I think those are issues that we can discuss. And then my problem is about the payments. Of that the policy has tried, just give me 3 minutes, Madam Speaker, so that I conclude. The payments of the stipends, we should not pay them like it is a church service where we are donating sadaka. We should ensure we give them proper remuneration to the community health workers, Madam Speaker, because they even do more than nurses and the doctors, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I agree that they should be, the payment should not be based on stipends or any commitments that we are doing, Madam Speaker. And even I saw my county, Madam Speaker, that the other day they were firing 384 casual workers. Majority of them that were fired by Nandi County government, majority of them are community health workers. It shows if those people are being protected through competent hiring process and the county had an obligation, they would not have fired them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to conclude by saying most senators will tell you that if we ensure community health workers function properly through community health units, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, is that we'll be able to bring down the arambase of hospital bills. Senators will tell you, if they show you their phones now and SMSs and WhatsApp messages, most of the arambase, Madam Speaker, are done because of skyrocketing hospital bills. And some of the diseases can be handled at the lowest level of through community health workers. Finally, Madam Speaker, allow me, through your indulgence, to celebrate all the teachers. You know, my mother just retired last year from the active teaching service, and I'm proud to be a son of a teacher. You also taught me in Moi University as our lecturer in Moi University when I was in School of Law. We are proud of all teachers from Nandi County and the entire of the country. We want to ask government not to intervene in breaking down the unions of teachers. Let us allow under Article 41 the unions to function so that our employees are protected from overreaching excesses of their employers. And we wish well all the teachers. The greatest teacher of all time was Jesus Christ. So I want to encourage teachers, even as they fight for small money, they should know that their reward is in heaven. Because one of them is in heaven, who is the Jesus Christ. Madam Speaker, I congratulate Senator Zani and look forward to bringing more amendments and ensure this comes into place. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Wakos Sitswila Amos.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this very important bill. I've been told the time is short, we must move on to the next bill. But I can say that this is one of the most important bills that has been brought to this House. I think there is no accident that a teacher, an eminent teacher, is the one who has brought this bill. So I'll speak on both, if you don't mind. The only point I wanted to mention here were two. We must remunerate community health workers. During my last campaign in Busia, we have so many of them in every village, everywhere, but they were not being paid. And I undertook that we shall try our best to ensure that they are paid. And I'm glad that through this bill, this clause mentions that they'll be adequately remunerated. I think it's clause 11, subclause 3. They shall be paid such allowances as the county executive committee shall, in consultation, whatever pay. And I think that's a good step forward. They ought to be remunerated. Just, Madam Speaker, the teachers also ought to be adequately remunerated. Just like, Madam Speaker, I believe the agricultural extension workers ought to be adequately remunerated. Mr. Speaker, sir, our salary policy in this country has been upside down. We tend to remunerate quite well people who are at the very top, but not people who are actually at the grassroots level. Madam Speaker, if the community health workers can be adequately remunerated, agricultural extension workers adequately remunerated, and teachers adequately remunerated, Madam Speaker, there will be a lot of development in the rural Kenya, not just here in Nairobi, but in the rural area, in the rural Kenya. And therefore, their remuneration is part of our development. Now, for them to be adequately remunerated, Madam Speaker, they must also, I'm glad that the bill proposes that they should have undergone a prescribed course or training at an institution. Madam Speaker, it's very, very important that we do not leave it to the county governments to do the policy as far as training is concerned. I believe that a community worker in Vihiga, Busia, Marala, they should be the same in qualifications and in training. If we leave it to the counties, there will be discrepancies in the level of training these community health workers. And therefore, I propose that that clause 11, which deals with training, should be strengthened to ensure that the policy on training and what is required on training and the qualifications needed are prescribed for the entire country at the national level. And therefore, it becomes the duty of the county government to ensure that it has enough people properly trained to be community health workers in their respective counties. Madam Speaker, there's also the issue of the Community Health Committee. I prefer the provisions here, but I want to suggest that you also include, do not leave out the village elders who are prescribed for under our County Governments Act, and the sub-chiefs of that area. These administrators at the village level should not be left out. They should be involved, because it now really becomes a community, a local community affair. And therefore, whoever has some influence in that community should also have a place on the committee. I'm glad that the members of the committee will be elected. I think that's very democracy. That's what we mean by enhancing democracy. Madam Speaker, sir, because of time, let me also talk about teachers. My father and my mother were teachers, so I thank them. What I am because of them. In fact, my father then went on to be one of the first African education officers in Kenya, way back in 1956. Then he went on to be the first clerk of the East African Legislative Assembly in 1961. Then he went on to become the head of education in the community, then the secretary to the authority of the community before it broke, and then he went to lead to be the head of the agency which dealt with locusts in Kenya. So I'm very, very proud of them. Madam Speaker, sir, as I said, there's no accident that a teacher.
Samahani, Madam Speaker, sir, nafikiri ni Mheshimiwa Speaker sasa.
Madam, so sorry, I can't see you. I thought the madam was still there. But I see a white face. We are in Mzungu. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Huyu ni Mzungu wa Ruiru.
Mzungu wa Ruiru yuko hapo. So sorry, my eyesight is not very, very good. Mudongo. Yeah. There's no accident that it has taken a teacher to bring this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's no accident that in the neighboring country, they have done very well, particularly on issues of ethnicity, on issues of corruption. Tanzania has done very well because their first president was a mwalimu, who was also a teacher. Madam Speaker, sir, sorry, Mr. Speaker, sir, sorry, I was so used to her, sorry. The Speaker, sir, it's no accident that in the first cabinet of Kenya, most of them, nearly 100% of them, were teachers. Mr. Speaker, sir, teachers, we know, play a very big role. And therefore, when we see the type of fights that are there between the Kenya National Union of Teachers and TSC, it is not good for this country. And I would like to appeal to both sides, or whoever is behind it, to solve that problem so that our teachers can work, can have a union which can represent them, a constitutional commission which can represent them. The constitutional commission should not be seen to be fighting teachers so that they are brought down. Mr. Speaker, sir, want to use this World Health Day to ensure that our teachers here enjoy their profession as teachers. Mr. Speaker, sir, teachers can in fact be very instrumental in bringing what I call a national ethos in Kenya. One of the things that we lack here, Mr. Speaker, sir, is an appropriate national ethos in Kenya. In fact, it's more fundamental even than the constitutional amendment to have a national ethos. In Britain, they don't have a constitution, but their traditions and customs, they go by that. And I believe that teachers can be used. When they are properly remunerated, they can be used to play the role they used to play, because we all look to teachers for guidance. They can play a very big role to have the right type of national ethos in this country that we all want. Mr. Speaker, sir, with those few remarks, because of brevity of time, I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Asante sana, Mheshimiwa Seneta wa Busia, Seneta Amos Wako. Seneta Amos Wako ni aliyekuwa wakili mkuu wa sheria